The March 20th shooting, officer-involved shooting of 29-year-old Osagie. I believe Mr. Paturno will be stepping to the microphone here any moment. Let's take a listen in.
Morning. I want to thank you for coming. With me today is Sergeant Will Slayton from the Heritage Affairs Unit, Lieutenant Brian Iannuzzi, Corporal Thomas Stock, and Trooper Aaron Allen from the Heritage Affairs Unit as well. The Heritage Affairs Unit is the unit of the state police that primarily investigates hate crimes and allegations related to the same. Also with me is Center County District Attorney's Integrity Officer, Megan McGorn. All the individuals in front of you here today played a role in investigating, reviewing, and providing the information that allowed me to make the conclusions that I make. You have my report, which are my conclusions. They're supported by the state police investigation, but they are separate and apart. And it is an attempt to cover everything in detail, to give the public what I know so that they can look at the facts and make their own independent judgments. I'd be remiss if I didn't state up front that, that this is a tragedy. It's a tragedy for the Osagie family. It's a tragedy for the officers involved. You have a family who's lost a loved one. You have police officers who wanted to go to work, protect their community, and go home safely. No one wanted this to happen. On March 19th, 2019, Osagie's father went to the State College Police Department to report his son missing. He'd last been seen at 8 p.m., and police were told that Mr. Osagie had a history of anxiety and schizophrenia and was probably off of his medication. Mr. Osagie's father was concerned that he would take his own life. Mr. Osagie had received a long text message that day from his son. In it, Mr. Osagie stated in part, there would be trouble with the police in a little bit, that his fast approaching deep sleep would result from a struggle between God and evil, the citizens of the U.S. and the government, and that any poor soul whose life he takes today, if any poor soul at all, then may God forgive their sins, if any. In a conversation that night with his father on the telephone, Mr. Osagie said he was going to die. Later that evening, he would text one of his caseworkers and said he would die very soon. Mr. Osagie's father and two State College police officers went to his apartment here in State College, talked to his roommate, but were unable to find where Mr. Osagie was. Multiple attempts were made to call his cell phone, but we've confirmed that throughout this, that night and the following day, his cell phone was off, and to date, that cell phone has not been located. The officer and one State College police officer went to, called Can't Help and obtained a 302 warrant. The other officer canvassed the Weiss Market, where Mr. Osagie was known to frequent, and interviewed people who worked at the Weiss Market to see if they could develop any information on Mr. Osagie. That evening, Mr. Osagie couldn't be found and no information was developed. The last information that the phone provided was that perhaps he was up by the college, but a check of that area revealed didn't find Mr. Osagie either. Following morning, March 20th, 2019, during the State College morning briefing, the day shift officers were briefed in part that there was a 302 warrant that Mr. Osagie was missing. A detective was assigned who made multiple attempts to call Mr. Osagie, and as I indicated earlier, his phone was probably turned off. A detective went to the laundromat and the shopping market to see if Mr. Osagie could be found that morning with no luck. At about 1:44 p.m. that afternoon, Mr. Osagie's former peer support counselor saw Mr. Osagie at the Weiss Market. She called Strawberry Fields, which is an organization that assists individuals in our county who are struggling with mental health issues. They notified Can Help. Can Help then notified the police. Radio calls confirmed that at 1:48, a patrol officer was notified of that sighting, and he was directed to investigate whether Mr. Osagie was in the area. The first thing that officer did was he called the dispatcher, asked the dispatcher to contact the person who had called to obtain information on how Mr. Osagie was dressed. He was told that he was carrying bags from the Weiss Market headed towards the direction of his apartment, that he had a hoodie on and up, and that was all the information that was transmitted to that first officer, the first officer to respond, who I'll refer to as officer number 1. The second officer who responded to this call was at the same morning roll call. He was briefed on some of the details of the 302 warrant. He did not believe he had ever dealt with Mr. Osagie directly, but he was familiar with similar briefings and similar mental health issues regarding Mr. Osagie. Officer number 2 is a supervisor, and he radioed in when he heard the call coming out that he would respond as well. The third officer to respond had checked the daily briefing and saw that there was a missing report on Mr. Osagie and a 302 warrant. He recognized the name from prior mental health calls. He knew that Mr. Osagie had a mental illness, but he did not believe he had ever personally dealt with Mr. Osagie. Officer number 3, the detective, supervising detective, had checked the laundromat at Hamilton Plaza earlier that morning. When he heard the call, he replied that he would respond to assist. Officers 1 and 2 were in full uniform. Officer number 3 was in plain clothes. All 3 officers had crisis intervention training. Officer number 2 and 3 were supervisors. Officer number 3 had received crisis negotiated training through the FBI. The first officer circled the general area waiting for the others to respond. All 3 cars parked up from Mr. Osagie's apartment. They did so that they were not visible. Police did not want to have Mr. Osagie see police there and then have that be something that provoked an action from him. If you take a look at the photo in front of you, you're looking out the entranceway to from Mr. Osagie's door. Police would have parked up the street to the right from where you're looking at right now. At 2 o'clock, the officers, the detective called the Detective Bureau to confirm, 1, that there was a 302 warrant, and 2, to get the address of Mr. Osagie and confirm it. Radio traffic does confirm 3 minutes later that is when the call of shots fired went out. After verifying that they had Mr. Osagie's apartment and there was a warrant, all 3 officers then proceeded through the door and down a short flight of stairs to a landing where Mr. Osagie's apartment is and how you access his apartment. So if we go to the film here, you'll get a general idea of the layout. They would have, after confirming the warrant, they would have walked through this entranceway here. Go ahead and pan down. And that is a half flight of stairs that goes down to a landing. At the bottom, not yet. At the bottom of this landing, the door to your right is an apartment door. Directly opposite to that door, to the left, is Mr. Osagie's apartment door. So you have to go down that half flight of stairs to the left to reach his apartment. That hallway is that hallway that you see at the bottom is 3 feet wide, and it's 7 feet long from the door to your right to Mr. Osagie's apartment door. 3 feet long is not really big enough to accommodate shoulder to shoulder two full-size adult males. Go ahead and take us down into the landing. It'll show us the stairways going up so we can orientate ourselves. So these are the stairs that you would have just walked down to come into the apartment. The third officer, the supervising detective, would have been about halfway up those flight of stairs. If you pan down to the first step, so one step up from the landing, closer to the wall on the opposite side, go ahead and move your arrow to your right. Closer to the right wall, first step. The second officer positioned himself there with a view, full view of the door to Mr. Osagie's apartment. Go ahead and turn to your right. And this would be Mr. Osagie's apartment. As you notice, the door actually opens to the out. That door is 2 foot 7 inches, so in order to stand there and talk to the person at the door, you're approximately 3 feet from the entranceway as the door opens up. Go ahead and take us into the apartment. Actually, pan to your left just a little bit. So stop right there. What you're looking at is a scan from something called a total station. If you've ever seen a tripod like your cameras are on top of it sits something that can scan it in and give you this 3D picture. You're approximately, that is the view approximately from where officer number 1 is going to end up when he discharges his weapon. Probably a little further back because he's all the way up against the door that you saw when you walked in. But that is the actual perspective, or that is a sight line from where these events are going to happen at the very end. Go ahead and take us in through to the apartment door. You're now inside the Osagie apartment. Keep going. Good. So that's that would be someone standing just inside the threshold or inside the door. That yellow triangle there is where that previous tripod was. So it's a little closer than where the officer was, but it gives you an idea of where this first officer is going to end up when these events unfold. And then go ahead and pan backwards, show us the last one. Now this will be from the far wall of the inside of the apartment. And that will give you an idea of what the apartment looked like on the date in question. It's exactly, there wasn't any furniture in there. You would have seen that wall and opened the door if you were opening the door. And then if you go back to the tripod by the, that one, yes ma'am. When the officers went to knock on Mr. Osagie's door, officer number 1 stood in front of the door, and he actually put his thumb over the peephole. He did that because he didn't want to alert Mr. Osagie that the police were at his door and provoke a response. Officer number 2 was on that step, as you've seen now, watching what occurred, and officer number 3 was higher up. He could hear and see what the officers were doing and only see a partial view inside the apartment. The first officer knocked multiple times on the door. It took longer. What I'm going to describe to you right now, from the first knock on that door to the shots fired call is 30 seconds or less. It'll take me a lot longer to explain, to walk through it second by second, so I want you to make you aware that probably the first 10 seconds we're waiting for Mr. Osagie to come to the door. The officers could hear someone moving inside the apartment and heard a voice eventually say that he was coming. The door opened out and Mr. Osagie was standing in the doorway. Officer number 1 asked the person answering the door whether he was Mr. Osagie. Mr. Osagie answered yes. The officer asked Mr. Osagie if they could come in and talk to him. He responded no. As he was speaking to him, his right hand was up on the wall that you saw, out of sight. So the officer 1 and officer 2 had a full view of Mr. Osagie's body, but his hand was at shoulder height, up against the wall, and it was not visible. When Mr. Osagie said no, the officer said, well, would you come outside and talk to us? At that point in time, Mr. Osagie stepped backward and the officer saw a serrated steak knife in his right hand. The knife was being held out at shoulder level with the blade pointed at officer number 1. At that moment, the officer drew his service revolver with his right hand and ordered Mr. Osagie to drop the knife multiple times. At the time that Mr. Osagie backed up, officer number 2 had a full view of his body and saw the knife in his right hand. Officer number 3, from halfway up the steps, could not see the knife, but could hear the reaction of the first officer screaming, drop the knife, and saw him moving backwards. In response to being told to drop the knife, Mr. Osagie said, shoot me, to which the officer responded, no, drop the knife. Officer number 1 began retreating backward to put distance between himself and Mr. Osagie. At that same time, the supervising detective told officer number 2 to get his taser, who was simultaneously already doing that. As officer number 2 was taking that taser out, upon either hearing the word taser or seeing it being taken out, Mr. Osagie moved to his right out of view and said, no, I want to die. When Mr. Osagie disappeared from view, officer number 1 radioed, quote, we need more units, we need more units. A second later, then the call of 1033, which is an emergency. Officer 1 backed up to the rear of that door that you saw, and at that point in time, Mr. Osagie came back into view. He was running out of his apartment with his knife in his right hand, pointed directly at officer number 1. When he made it to the doorway, the second officer discharged his taser. Officer number 2 could hear officer number 1 yell, stop. He described Mr. Osagie as running as fast as a person can run. Officer number 2 presumed the taser that it missed because he perceived no change in Mr. Osagie. He kept coming. Officer 2 actually saw officer number 1 back up behind him. So as you saw those steps, the second officer is on the first step, and officer number 1 has actually retreated past his vantage point. The first person, the first officer that Mr. Osagie was going to reach was the officer on the steps, officer number 2. Officer number 2 estimated he was 3 feet from Mr. Osagie when he discharged that taser. Forensic evidence confirmed that Mr. Osagie was in fact shot with the taser, and that taser was from a distance of approximately 3 feet. All 3 officers confirmed that officer number 1 retreated past officer number 2's position, that the taser was shot first, and that then there were gunshots. The second officer estimated that officer number 1 was 2 feet from Mr. Osagie when he started shooting. After shooting the taser, officer number 2 dropped it and was attempting to pull his gun, to access his gun, when the shots were fired. Officer number 2 described the shots as being so close that initially he thought he had been shot. He could feel the muzzle blast and the concussion from the gun on his arm. From officer number 1's perspective, he saw the second officer discharge the taser, and he saw that it did not stop Mr. Osagie. As he backed up physically against that wall, officers are trained to move backwards and move left or right. So instinctively, my presumption is he began to move left and tripped on the step. As Mr. Osagie came through that door and was shot with the taser, he canted or turned right towards officer number 2. And that is when the patrol officer started firing his weapon. Officer number 1 believed he shot 3 times, but physical evidence confirms that it was 4. The officer stopped firing when he saw that Mr. Osagie was falling. He saw the first shot strike Mr. Osagie on the left side. At the time that the officer shot, he estimated that his feet were 1 feet from Mr. Osagie, that he was falling backwards against the wall, and that his torso was 2 feet from Mr. Osagie. Gunshot residue and distance testing of the clothes of Mr. Osagie confirmed those officers' estimates. The actual distance from the muzzle to the garments was anywhere from 6 to 36 inches, or 1 to 2 feet, as reported. At the time that officer number 1 was charged, he tells us the knife was raised up, pointed at him, at officer number 1 and 2, and he believes that had he not fired, he would have been seriously injured or killed. Officer number 2 indicated that but for officer number 1's quick actions, it was his opinion that either both or one of them would have been seriously injured or killed. Officer number 3 advised that from his perspective, the landing allowed no more room to retreat. The first officer had retreated as far back as he could, and he had no other option but to shoot. The officer's statements were compared with the objective evidence that the investigation put together. That evidence included 911 radio calls, evidence collected and documented at the scene by the Forensic Service Unit of the State Police, taser downloads, state crime lab reports, an autopsy, the pathologist who performed that autopsy's expert opinion on whether the physical evidence was consistent with the officer's statement and the reports that had been gathered, and an expert review by a state police use of force expert, Corporal Kevin Selverian. Although I have his report in my report, this report stands alone. They are my findings and conclusions. Radio calls and the taser download confirmed that the events occurred over a very short period of time. From the time that that knife was first seen by the officers to the time that the shots were fired was 10 seconds approximately. We know that because the taser was taken off safety at or about the time that the knife was sighted. The taser download tells us it was on safety for 10 seconds and then the trigger was activated. When a trigger is activated on a taser, it runs a current for 5 seconds and then stops. It does not run a second current unless somebody pulls the trigger. Download confirms that it was off safety for 10 seconds or activated, that it was activated for 5 seconds, and then there were no further activations. When you look at the photos in your packet, you're actually going to notice that there are marks in the wall of the stairs going down the hallway. And those marks are consistent with the officer's description of tripping, and they actually didn't fall down. They fell up the stairs but never lost their balance. Officer number 1's duty belt has paint consistent or where you would expect it to be if they had tripped and fallen up those stairs. The autopsy confirmed that there were 2 taser probe wounds to the right chest, approximately 6 inches apart. The pathologist confirms that a 6-inch spread is unlikely to disable somebody. Just the path of the current will cause pain, but nothing more. His opinion is that that shock from a taser, if it had any effect, it might cause a person to move away from the shock, or in this case, the right chest might have caused Mr. Osagie to turn or cant to his right as perceived by the first officer, or whether Mr. Osagie was turning his attention on the first officer. Both of those things are consistent with the officer's description. Toxicology reports confirm that Mr. Osagie wasn't on any medication. The only thing in his system was caffeine. The autopsy documented that Mr. Osagie was shot 3 times. The pathologist reviewed his formal findings together with crime scene photos, officer statements, crime lab results to confirm whether or not the events I've described are consistent with the physical forensic evidence. The pathologist confirms that the first shot struck Mr. Osagie in the left shoulder, exiting the chest of Mr. Osagie. The pathologist concluded that the trajectory of the first shot was consistent with Mr. Osagie turning right facing towards officer number 2, who was on the first step up from the landing on those stairs. The trajectory of that bullet was primarily from left to right, slightly back to front and slightly down to up. The second shot was to the left side of Mr. Osagie's mid-back. The primary trajectory of that bullet was down to up, slightly left to right, and back to front. The pathologist concluded that the trajectory of that bullet was consistent with the officer's description of falling backwards as he was shooting and shooting as he was falling. The third shot was to Mr. Osagie's right mid-back. The primary trajectory of that bullet was right to left, slightly back to front, and parallel to the ground. The pathologist concluded that this shot was consistent with the officer's description of falling as he was shooting and Mr. Osagie actually falling after he was shot. It was the pathologist's opinion that the first shot to the left shoulder and chest would have caused Mr. Osagie to move away and turn, exposing his mid-left and right back. It was his conclusion that the trajectories confirm that was Mr. Osagie was continuing to turn right as the officer was firing. The pathologist concluded that the autopsy's physical findings were consistent with officer number 1's descriptions of the events that occurred, physical evidence recovered at the scene, and his medical examination. The state crime lab did extensive testing on the gunshot residue, gave ranges of the distance from muzzle to Mr. Osagie on all 3 shots, and they ranged, as I said, between 6 inches and 36 inches, which is consistent with Mr. Osagie being about 1 to 2 feet from the officer as he was shooting. The conclusions that we've reached as a result of that investigation are based on the following. The events that I described, from the knock on the door to the call of shots fired, took 30 seconds. The events of seeing a knife to the time that shots were fired was 10 seconds. Officer number 1 was in a life or death situation at the time that he fired, and he had no other option but to shoot in defense of himself and officer number 2 at the time that this occurred. Mr. Osagie had expressed in his text messages an intent and plan to kill himself and others. Those text messages are actually, when you read them, specific to what occurred here. The taser download and radio traffic calls confirm a very short period of time in which to make a life or death situation, seconds, in a confined space where there was nowhere else to go. At the time the officer saw the knife in Mr. Osagie's right hand, it was objectively reasonable to believe they were at serious risk of death or serious bodily injury due to an assault with a knife. At the time that Mr. Osagie turned towards the second officer on the step, that officer had thrown his taser down and he was unarmed. Officer number 2 described the shots as being so close to him, initially he thought he had been shot in the arm. He could feel the muzzle blast and concussion. Given the distance between Mr. Osagie and the officers, the speed at which Mr. Osagie was moving, Mr. Osagie had ample opportunity to seriously injure and potentially kill both officers. At the time that officer number 1 shot, there was no time to use any alternative means to stop a potentially deadly attack by Mr. Osagie. At the time of the incident, both officers acted consistently with their training and were justified in the use of their force. Justified in the use of the force of a taser and the use of deadly force given a deadly attack by Mr. Osagie. That concludes my investigation, our investigation on the use of force, but I don't believe it's appropriate to conclude, and it was not appropriate to conclude the report that we prepared. To do so would not be fair to the families involved, the Osagie family, the officers involved, our community, and individuals and families who are struggling with the same issues that people were struggling with here. It's my opinion and it's my recommendation that our community needs to take a hard look at the 302 process. And it's also my conclusion, a hard look at our mental health statutes. Because it's my personal opinion that we have written the statutes in such a way that ensure that people reach a mental health crisis where they are either suicidal or homicidal before authorities can act. And that when you're dealing with somebody who has a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia and who's off their medication, it is very predictable they will act consistent with how that disease presented itself previously. And so to require families to wait till that person is actually in a mental health crisis, off their medication, potentially suicidal and homicidal, puts them at risk, puts their families at risk, puts law enforcement at risk. I say that not really based on my own conclusions. I was led there by someone from our community, which I included in your packet. She was probably the person who spoke clearest to me in the time period while I've been investigating this case. And I thought her words were the clearest statement of the issue. She is a PhD, works in the mental health field, and has a child who suffers from paranoid schizophrenia and has had to go through many of the same things the Osagie family did. She wrote to me, the laws in Pennsylvania are one of the strictest in the country. They mandate a person to mandate a person to receive treatment. The person must be an imminent threat to themselves or others. The threat must be in crisis mode. Waiting this long for help has many unintended consequences. Other states and countries allow a doctor in the health system to use the deterioration in the mental health and the prior clinical history as a way to predict dangerousness. Here in Pennsylvania, we are required to wait until the person is actually threatened or taken actions, and only within the last 30 days. Mr. Osagie's clinical and mental health, I've documented in the report so that those who come after today's press conference and who want to seriously look at the issues can address them. But it was predictable that when he was off his medication, that he would pose a risk to himself and others. And on his medication, he's reported to be a kind, thoughtful, forgiving, religious person who wouldn't hurt anybody. But his treatment providers would have known and could have told you that something like this could happen if he was not on his medication. Mr. Osagie was in a residential treatment facility or residential placement in our community from March 2016 until December of 2018. While living in that residential program, he received every treatment and service that our county offers, and he did well. From all the reports that I've read, there is not anything where he posed a threat to himself or anyone else. In December of 2018, Mr. Osagie began to transition from a residential treatment placement to his own apartment, living independently. Once he transitioned and moved into that apartment, he became non-compliant with his treatment and services. On January 16th, he requested discharge from his peer support program. On February 11th, his caseworker reported that his mental health was deteriorating. On February 27th, he ended services with CSG and mobile psych rehab. At the time, as I stated, of this incident, he was off his medication, receiving no treatment whatsoever. It was predictable that he would decompensate to the state where he had been before when he was not on medication. If you go through that report, you'll see the number of 302 warrants we ask law enforcement to serve every year. Last year, we asked law enforcement to serve over 300 302 warrants. That is significantly up from previous years. It's my belief that the State College Borough has it right in bringing together a task force to address the issues that are raised in this case, and there are many. It should address how best to process 302 warrants. And it should address how our mental health system reacts, treats, and is structured to handle individuals with chronic mental illness. It should include representatives from the Center County Mental Health System, mental health professionals and advocates, law enforcement, community leaders, and local government, because those are the individuals that are responsible for dealing with this on the front line. I again express my heartfelt sympathy to the Osagie family. And I express the same to the officers involved, because we asked them to go down there and serve a 302 warrant. And they have to suffer the consequence of having to be in a life and death situation and take someone's life at very close range. And I think we owe it to them and our community to look at this seriously and soberly and ask the question, what should we be doing differently? That's all I have, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
In the report here, you've got photos, it looks to be, is this the steak knife he had? Has a wooden handle?
You know, you're looking at a second steak knife that is exactly this. The first knife is the one on the scene, at the scene.
The one he had?
That is the one he had, and that is a duplicate knife that was in the drawer. So that is exactly the knife that was used. Yes, sir.
The first, we're trying to get a frame of reference. The first one he had, how long was the blade, approximately? A few inches?
5.16.
Say it again.
I believe the exact, I believe, is 5.16.
Okay. Has State College Police or any other law enforcement had any visits at that apartment or previous encounters, Mr. Osagie?
Ask that question again.
Had State College Police or any other law enforcement had any previous visits to that apartment or any previous encounters with him?
There had been a number of encounters with Mr. Osagie over the years, both by State College Police and other local law enforcement agencies. They had not had any encounters at that apartment with Mr. Osagie. He had only been there since March. They were familiar with the layout of the apartment based on previous visits.
Under the 302 regulations in Pennsylvania or whatever, they couldn't simply go to the apartment and establish he was there and then back off and call his father and say, we found him. They had to take him into custody?
Well, you know, in this case, they really never got that chance. I mean, they knocked on the door to see if he was there, and within seconds, he was there with a knife in his right hand. And as soon as they saw that, they attempted to retreat backwards, and in a matter of seconds, he was rushing them with that knife. So what occurred here, once they knocked on that door, the actions of Mr. Osagie left very few options for the officers that were at that door.
Could you talk again a little bit about when the officer did shoot him? And he shot him in the shoulder at first, and then Mr. Osagie was spinning around? Because I'm just picturing someone hearing that and saying, well, it sounds like he was shot in the back.
So if he was standing right at you and then turned to his right to go facing officer number 2, his left shoulder is exposed. And he was shot in the left shoulder, and an officer can shoot 4 bullets in 1 second, and that's consistent with him being shot in the left shoulder and spinning as he's being shot, and the officer shooting and falling as Mr. Osagie is spinning.
Is there any concern, though, that the officer could have stopped and not continued to shoot?
There's always going to be a concern, right? So what officers are, and I can let others speak to it, but I know the answer to it. Officers are trained to shoot and shoot till the attack stops. And officers are trained that one shot to the torso actually usually does not disable someone. So the statistic is in your packet, over 60% of the times where there's been a shooting in the chest, the individual is not disabled and sometimes can continue on for another 5 minutes. So officers are taught to shoot until the assault or threat stops. The cues that they look at are whether the person is falling or whether they've dropped the knife. Now you've got to realize that these 4 shots occurred, and the 4th shot missed and actually hit the door. There's a picture in your packet. Those 4 shots took 1 second in all likelihood to occur, and at the same time, Mr. Osagie was running forward, turning, spinning, falling. So his body is moving to the right as he shot first, and in all likelihood, says the pathologist, that shot would have caused him to spin, and then the officer is actually behind the second officer at the time he's shooting. He's up against that wall and falls up the wall. He doesn't recall taking steps, but the marks on the duty belt tells me that they actually literally fell up the wall after the shooting.
If I may also, if you look in your packet to the use of force report, you're also, sorry, you're also not taking into account the officer's reaction time to perceive the threat and then to perceive actually what those shots are, what effect they're having on that person. So you have to take that all into account when you're asking about the number of shots or the placement of shots. You need to take that into consideration, and I believe in the use of force report there by State Police Corporal, it details that very, very well.
What we do know, because it's been scientifically tested and researched, that at this distance, Mr. Osagie can close that distance even while the officer is backing up in 3/4 of a second. So you got to understand, you're asking someone to make a decision in 3/4 of a second plus another second to shoot. So in less than 2 seconds, that's how long this took. And frankly, there is only time to act and react to what the threat is. That's my opinion of what occurred here. Yes.
You were saying that the officer number 3 was plainclothes?
Correct.
And the officer 1 and 2 were in uniform?
That's correct.
Does that include a protective vest?
That's correct.
Okay. As a layperson,
Sure.
that knife does not look that dangerous to me. Can
Right.
you just talk about that?
Sure. Well, the knife was, from the officer's perspective, the knife was out and pointed at him, and he thought he was going to be stabbed in the neck.
In the neck, you said?
Yes, that was his perception. And my answer to that is that you have to remember the case of Mr. Donahue down in State College in 2007. He was involved in a fight in a bar, and he was stabbed with a 3-inch paring knife. He died. The defendant was charged with first-degree murder. He was convicted of third-degree murder. So a 5-inch steak knife is capable of killing somebody. There are, and officers are trained to treat a knife as a deadly weapon because it can kill you.
The initial reports that the taser malfunctioned.
Go ahead.
Just real quick, may I address the vest issue? This is a bullet-resistant vest, so it does not protect us. The trauma plate, if you have one, will deflect a knife. However, anywhere else in the vest, a knife will penetrate. These are not, they're resistant to it, but it will penetrate. So just because they had a vest on does not mean they were protected at all.
All right, so you could still get stabbed? if
Yes,
you
ma'am.
want to.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to clarify that.
The initial report had the word malfunction in terms of the taser use. Did the taser work, but you're saying it did not slow it down?
So the taser puts a current between 2 probes, right? And you need a larger probe to actually disable someone, and frankly, if you want to split the hemispheres, that disables one side. It's just going to cause localized pain between the two points. So if at a distance of 3.5 feet, which is what a 6-inch spread tells us, it's probably not going to disable somebody. And it did not in this case.
It wasn't a malfunction.
Yeah, thank you.
That was the word that was used.
Yeah, it wasn't a malfunction.
No.
The probes, both probes stopped and both probes worked.
Correct.
It just did not seize him up and stop.
All this happened in the doorway, I asked, because the initial search warrant and the return sheet 20 items found at the scene. Number 20 said bullet fragments, bedroom.
So, if you look at that door, can you get a little closer? If you look carefully, right at the top, you're going to see where a bullet struck that door. And the metal plating actually spun. It used to be up at the top. It's actually knocked off. The bullet hit there, and it fragmented, and a fragment ended up in the back of that apartment, and a fragment ended up on the door. So the last shot was actually a miss, and it hit the door, and then a part of it traveled into the apartment.
In reference to Mr. Osagie's history before this incident, were any officers on the scene made aware of previous encounters or previous incidents, and specifically a 2013 incident where he randomly pulled a knife on someone in a park and suffered various charges and sentence related to that?
So the officers were aware that he had previous 302s for previous mental health issues, and specifically these officers were not aware of that incident that you're talking about.
So they had no prior history of him ever pulling a knife on officers or anyone before?
These particular officers, I do not believe were aware of that. They were aware of a previous incident, but not that incident.
Follow up, did the officers have anything else on them besides a gun that could have been used to subdue, potentially subdue Mr. Osagie?
The answer is I don't think so, but I'm going to let the expert.
No, well, we have different options. Once again, a taser is a less lethal option. So once again, I'm going to refer to the corporal's use of force report to talk about the different use of force options. But at that point, when a knife is presented to you in that close proximity, we are trained that deadly force, that's a deadly force situation, and deadly force would be authorized. So at that time, them transitioning to something else less lethal is just not an option at that point, at that close of a range.
Yeah, you know, the thing about it is the officers, even though when the knife was pulled, they didn't go rushing in to attempt to create a confrontation. Their first reaction was to back up. It was only Mr. Osagie coming forward out of the apartment that created a critical incident that lasted just a few seconds. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any insight as to why the 302 number jumped so much in that?
No, and that's one of the things we need to look at. When you look at it, it's a significant increase as to why we have that, and that's beyond, I think that's for the next group that's going to look at this issue. I can tell you I sit on the Prison Advisory Board, and over 60% of the prisoners in the Center County prison are on psychotropic medication. So is there a link between mental health illness and law enforcement? Yeah, they're being asked to step in on a pretty daily basis. This is not, unfortunately, these calls are not unusual.
Do you have an idea as to the future of these three specific officers?
Sure, I mean, I can speak generally, and you'll have to direct some of those questions to the State College Police Department. I've reviewed it. The use of force was unfortunately necessary and justified, and so our case is closed. There's no further proceedings. They'll have an administrative process before returning an officer to work, and they'll go through that before they do so.
Just follow up on that, so you won't be identifying them?
No, my policy is and has been that we do not identify people who've been accused of a crime. We do that for the citizens of Center County. We're going to treat the officers the very same. And when I say that, I think that's it. I asked myself that question. I thought about it very hard. And then unfortunately in today's society, the officer and their family can be subject to a lot of different things, and it is a family and officer safety issue as well.
How many years of experience did the officers have?
You had two supervisors who had, I'll say, decades of experience, and this is an estimate, but the patrol officer had approximately 10 years of experience. Gentlemen, do you know a more specific answer to that? Okay. Sure.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. If I may, I just want to address the racial or any perceived racial component to this incident. My name is Sergeant William Slayton, and I'm the Heritage Affairs Commander assigned to State Police Headquarters within our Department's Equality and Inclusion Office. With me today is Trooper Aaron Allen He's a Heritage Affairs officer. My office is responsible for monitoring and responding to hate or bias type crimes that occur throughout the state. I work with several federal, state, local agencies, community entities in responding to hate and bias type crime. I'm a member of the NAACP. I'm a member of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. As soon as this incident transpired, within minutes, in coordination with the criminal investigation, I received a phone call from the commanders on scene asking me to show up and ensure that there is no racial component to this incident. Every community meeting they've had since this incident, we've been there. We've met with the hierarchy of Penn State. Yesterday, we met with the Osagie family. We are heavily involved, and we want to remain very transparent in this incident. And I can assure you, based on everything the district attorney just said, the physical evidence at the scene, there is no perceived racial animus in this incident. Whether these officers are white, black, Hispanic, Asian, any reasonable officer would have reacted in the exact same manner that these officers did. And as the DA said earlier, the mental health system in this country or in this state needs to change. So this does not happen again. Yesterday, we were sitting with the Osagie family and we extended our condolences. We don't see this, we don't want this to happen to anyone at all. We don't want to put someone suffering from mental health in this predicament. We don't want to put officers in this predicament, and we don't want to put the community in this predicament. From what I understand, the family, they're heavily ingrained in this community, and they are well respected, and we appreciate that. But this incident cannot be associated with anything else going on across the country. The question was also asked, the state police are investigating, how are we going to ensure that the police hold other police officers accountable? The Pennsylvania State Police has held other police officers accountable for racial or bias type incidents. There was a recent shooting in South Whitehall Township out front of Doney Park. A white police officer shot an unarmed Hispanic male. I was involved in that incident. We charged that officer. So if that was the case here, we have no reservations with charging a police officer if they did something wrong. This is not the case. The mental health system failed this gentleman. He sent messages saying he was going to harm himself. May God forgive him. He was going to kill others. These officers had a mere seconds to react. Seconds. And that's all I would like to say with regard to that issue. Any questions?
Is the work by state police then concluded as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you describe at all your conversation with the Osagie family?
I want to give them the respect they deserve, but we were very transparent with them with regard to the investigation. We provided them a lot of information, some of which you didn't receive. So I'm not going to comment on their demeanor or anything to that regard. I want to give them the respect they deserve.
Just to clarify his comment, we do have some background information to complete in terms of administrative things, getting the guns back from our state police lab, and those types of things. So administratively, the report is still not complete per se. We still have some inside things to do, clean up some of the evidence and make sure we preserve everything correctly. But so the investigation still is ongoing, just administratively we have some things to do.
But no additional charges or anything?
No, ma'am.
like that?
As far as the last thing we were waiting on was the ballistics report for the district attorney's office, and we got that, and that's why we had the conference.
At this time, do we have any idea as to the condition of the 3 officers involved, how they're doing?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I do understand that the patrol officer has struggled. I can say I read the reports. He struggled at the scene. He was seen by a medic. He had extremely high blood pressure, and he was acting as you would expect somebody would act in such a traumatic event. And I am told he has struggled throughout this, that it is not easy on him or his family.
After this, you're going to be addressing the public as well. Are there any anticipated concerns from them?
Well, ask that question again.
You said after this, you'll be addressing the public.
If there are members of the public, we did get some calls from people who were interested in attending, and I've made time at 12:30 if there are members of the public to discuss the report and the findings. And as you probably don't know, but at 1 o'clock, the actual report will be put online and can be found at the Center County District Attorney's Office website. And in the future, should there be community meetings and events, which I've attended throughout, I intend to be there to answer any questions as well.
In a previous conversation I had with you, you had mentioned that this was a more thorough investigation than might typically be the case. So are you able to touch on how much more thorough, how much time and effort was put into this investigation?
Sure, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. Again, from my office's standpoint, we want to look into the investigation and see if there's any type of racial animus at all concerned with this incident. We looked into it. We looked extensively. There is nothing there. Again, like I said earlier, any reasonable police officer, no matter what race or religion, would have responded in the same manner within a matter of seconds to save their own life as well as their partner's life. Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Brett? Did? Okay, thanks.
How soon was any ambulances on scene?
Minutes, literally minutes. I could give you the exact times. I don't have it in front of me. The third officer immediately called for backup and ambulance, and then his third radio transmission was to call in the state police. And their first thing that they did was render aid at the scene and stay with Mr. Osagie until the paramedics got there. They were on site within minutes.
My understanding is there were 2 prescription pill bottles taken from the scene. Was that specifically Mr. Osagie's medication for?
Yeah, I can't comment on that. I know I can only tell you that that he wasn't on any medication at that point in time.
Can I just ask about the apartment? Because I know he did have a roommate.
He did.
In that space, like, is there a door to a bedroom or something? Or
Yeah,
is it
the roommate was sleeping in the bedroom. That's right, in the apartment.
So there's 2 bedrooms in that apartment?
To the right. Back there.
I see.
Back there, on the left.
Okay. And just one roommate? There was just 2 people in the apartment?
That's right.
Okay. And he was sleeping at the time?
He was.
Can I ask just this?
Alrighty, that is Center County District Attorney Bernie Cantorna and members of Pennsylvania State Police giving a detailed description of what happened on March 20th in the deadly police-involved shooting of Osagie. Cantorna said Osagie was dealing with serious mental health issues at the time of the shooting. As you see, no charges have been filed in that shooting death of Osagie. Cantorna stating the shooting was justified in the officer's use of force and also justified in their use of a taser. We will have much more on this case, of course, coming up on WTAJ News later tonight.
District Attorney Cantorna's announcement sparked protests in State College today.
David Kaplan was at both protests and joins us now with what people who were there say they hope to accomplish. David?
Protesters say they want justice for the Osagie family and to make sure similar shootings don't happen again. Following Wednesday's press conference, planned protests started around Center County, beginning with the group #WeAreNot parking a car and blocking traffic on West College Avenue in State College. Others set up traffic cones at the crosswalk on South Allen Street. Traffic was stopped on both streets for over an hour. The protesters say they want the community to come together and bring justice for the Osagie family. Police arrived after a man pushed one of the protesters.
I wasn't here for that instance in particular, or else that gentleman would have been arrested. Okay, people have a right to protest. I don't suggest anyone go and aggravate protesters.
State police say they were there to keep the peace and chose not to break up the protest.
Legally, we do have the right to intervene, but considering the circumstances and the emotions we chose not to intervene.
There was another protest organized by March Against Violence at the Allen Street Gate. Before the march, Nolu Osagie, Osaze's mother, spoke out against District Attorney Bernie Cantorna's decision not to charge the officer who shot and killed her son.
The district attorney's idea of justice, based, I suppose, on unjust policies, is untenable. It is a fact. A wrongful death occurred.
She says the family was shocked how the situation unfolded.
A request from the family for our son to be taken to the hospital is not a request for him to be put in an early grave.
According to the Center Daily Times, the group #WeAreNot demand officer involved with the shooting be charged and fired. They want community oversight of the investigation, complete transparency of the event, along with funds and resources provided to the Osagie family for grief counseling and support. In-State College, David Kaplan, WTAJ News.
No peace! No racist! Police! Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. Say what?
For the last week or so, we've been putting on programming and actions to both educate the general public about Osazeosagie and the circumstances that surrounded his murder, as well as holding the borough accountable.
3 shots in the back. How do you justify that? You can't justify 3 shots in the back. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Osage's life matter. Osage's life matter. Osage's life matter.
It took 30 seconds for officers to decide if the person they were trying to help was a threat to them. Within 30 seconds, a fatal, biased, and incorrect judgment was made.
Stop Asian hate! Stop Asian hate! Justice for Osagie! Till we get it right. Which side are you on, my people? Which side?
Asked for the names of the officers for 20 months, from March 2019 through January 2021.
Revolution children, here to tell you, Osage's life matters. Osage's life matters. We are not afraid. We are not afraid.
Charles Galford. I knew Osagie. I know him very well. It's kind of hard for me to deal with. I got a phone call like a couple minutes in the morning. And if you remember that that person told me he died. It was hard for me every day. I had to deal with it. I hit myself in the head too many times. This point's useless. I'm sorry. I'm fucked up. It hurts me very much that I died. Not because of skin color, because we're all human. We're all human in different bloods and shape. I've been not a very happy person. I remember like a couple of days ago, I got into like a disagreement with my staff and I hit myself in the head. I bit myself a couple times. It's not going well, bud. I'm actually diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Also, what's it called? I had to take Boosterol and also take a lot of bunch of medications as well. I also remember, this is pretty much going downhill for me as well. The reason why I come to the protest today is because I'm not simple. I don't want to be one. I want to help him out best I can while he's still living in my mind on this planet Earth. It hurts. It really does hurt. I remember also I hit myself with furnace one time too. It was gone. It was gone, man. It's pretty much gone. My whole life's pretty much gone. I even post on Facebook saying I don't like my mind right now. Before necessary, dragging me down. My life has been dragging me down, man. I miss him. It's official. I never thought I could say this, but I'm not happy with the police officers. I never, after I heard the story so many times about Officer 1, I even read also read the booklet about what happened, the knife and shit. I didn't believe it was justified, bud. I didn't. I believe it was just kind of like, it was probably like manslaughter or wrongful death, definitely, because it did help. Since Osagie wanted to die, the officer shot him, so it's probably considered manslaughter. I was never happy about it. I'm not happy about hearing about it. It was technically, bud, the last straw. When I went to the spoken for all council meeting, it was for real. Like, I felt the energy in my own speaking. Right now, I feel the energy. I'm not doing it for fame. I really miss him. Really do miss him. We used to hang. We used to joke around and stuff like that to be funny. And he also, one time I saw it, just kind of like I don't know. I texted him on the phone the number I still have, at least the number I still have that I'm probably never going to delete. I told him, I talked to him like he was in crisis. I wanted to visit him. He was in crisis. He had to go to the hospital. I told him watch the different. He was watching the news, and I told him watch a different channel. And so what happened was that he, I guess he felt more of crisis when he like called me, text me like couple like a day after or whatever. I can't remember if it's the after or like whatever, but yeah, Dennis, what should I do? What should I do? Texted me. And it happened, like he just kind of like got crisis. Just I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Thank you for providing us with an intimate portrait of your friend, Osagie. We really appreciate that.
You'd have heard it if you listened to Alexis Wainwright's broadcast on WJAC. She's not there anymore. But like most of the news outlets here, they're owned by Sinclair Broadcasting, a right-wing outfit, Trump supporters, right-wing. So that's the news you get. But at least that sister told that story and reported on what the police chief said. In the Daily Collegian, the story about that event, the writer started talking about the clothes we had on. The clothes we had on. Did he just say the clothes we had on? That's what they wrote about. That's what they wrote about. What you know about Osagie. Because if you knew, you would be with the 320 Coalition. If you knew, you'd be outraged that it's done in your name. The police are not a hired military. I know at 17 I was in the U.S. Army. I don't speak for nobody but myself. But if you got to kill civilians, you need a different job. Most police have never killed a person.
Justice for Osagie!
A weapon. You kill a man on a health care check, a welfare check from their father, and you kill them. Who is the person that killed them? We don't know. They refuse to tell us. They're servants of the people. The police work for us. So if you call someone makes a welfare check for one of you all, they may be getting Officer 1 at their door. We have a right to know that. Who is Officer 1? Who's going to tell us? Well, the DA, of course, Cortana. Look at the presentation when he released the first non-independent investigation. What did he say? His words. You ain't even hearing Henderson yet. It's their stuff. He said it was a tragedy. The killing of Osagie, an innocent black man in his house. He said it was a tragedy for the Osagie family. And in perfect Donald Trump style, he said it was also a tragedy for the policeman who killed them. He said that. It's on the video. Now, you got to look at the whole video. If you just go to the WJAC version, the Sinclair Broadcasting, they cut off that first part. At the first part, he says, it's a tragedy for the Osagie family and for the officer that killed them. I'm not making this up. What you know about Osagie? You know about George Floyd, and you should. You know about Breonna Taylor, and you should. This happened right where you are. What do you know about Osagie? And what do you do about it? These folks, Sister Tiara, Sister Nanre, Melanie Morrison, all these sisters and brothers here, they organized to do honor and justice to Osagie.
Back to the people.
Look here. White supremacism won't just teach you what to think, it'll teach you how to think. Don't accept the frame they give you. If you accept the frame, you're going to accept the conclusions. Don't accept the frames they give you. That's why I wrote that op-ed that students published, Being Black at Penn State. There's been 3% black faculty at Penn State for 30 years. That was published a year and a half ago, not this January, the January before. Google it, Being Black at Penn State. I asked folks, just ask the university, is what Henderson said true? That's all. The students then editing the paper, they investigated it, and then they published it. Look at what they say. They speak stronger than I did. Look at what the editors say. Different editors now. They ain't the same. Oh, Lord, they ain't the same. Look at what those students said. I was the only tenured African-American professor in the history of the political science department. In its history. How long is that? They was teaching political science when Atherton was here. Yes, Atherton, the one the streets named out. That's how long ago, over 100 years. I'm the first one. I tell folks I'm brilliant, I ain't that damn brilliant. The U.S. had a black president before the political science department at Penn State tenured a black full professor. Last year, they tenured 2, so I guess the problem's over. They problem 2 of them. I've been here since 2002. Where'd he come from? Where'd he find some magic Negroes? And those 2 are excellent scholars. I want to be clear. They are excellent scholars. And they were excellent scholars we tried to recruit before. Look here. They got all this money now. They got all these task force now. They will task force your ass to death. They're good at it. They'll wait you out. You know how many damn task force I've been on since I've been here in 2002? About 2010, I said, I ain't doing this no more. Why? The technical term is bullshit. You don't need no task force. You don't need no damn student code of conduct. You're a grown-ass woman and man. We never accepted that. Why? Because they'll only use it against you.
Yep.
They'll call me because I just used profanity. You reciting a rap lyric that got the N-word in it, they're going to cite you. They're not going to get them white supremacists. Just like when you see those so-called parties, when it's supposed to be a requirement for masks. You know they white when they say students. Because if they wasn't white, they'd be black students. They'd be brown, red, yellow. There'd be some adjective on it. When it's general like that, that's white. When it's fraternities, sororities, they white. Because if they was black fraternities and sororities, you know it. Who's receiving the discipline? We don't have that data disaggregated by race. I've gone to these offices complaining about white students acting a damn fool in my class. Punishment. Rare, if ever. In fact, they rarely even contact me to let me know the disposition of a case I bring. Meanwhile, they call the police on black students. Who do you think they're going to use that code of conduct again? Who? You grown-ass people. You don't need no parents here. You're not going to win the case anyway because you got freedom of speech in the United States. But they'll involve you in task force after task force. I can't count how many I've been on. Listen to it. In 2010, I stopped because it's bullshit. The affirmative action office should be headed by a lawyer from either the NAACP Legal Defense Fund,
Hello. Hello. Hey. Hey.
utterly predictable.
Right. So this
Oh, that might not have been predictable.
So more is going to come out now because they were still married when Osagie was shot. So she was privy. Well, she already had gone to lawyers after to get protected from him.
You mean after the shooting or after what?
The kickoff is on Sunday.
Oh, this upcoming Sunday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, it's on Sunday, so we that hasn't happened yet, but I think it's going to be terrific. Yeah.
Oh.
Hi guys, can make it. Please be our guests.
My friend Rachel made them. She's amazing.
They go into a hill.
Hi. Hey. Hey. Dude.
Yeah?
You know what news, Ozzy?
Yeah.
I know.
We've talked before.
Really?
Yeah. How you doing?
I was just handling it in there. I keep hitting myself. I've been myself and I'm paranoid. But, you know, what can you do?
Yeah.
It's a good thing I did call crisis because, you know, it was just getting too much.
Yeah, it's getting tough out these days.
COVID-19. Sorry, am I making you feel uncomfortable about this video?
No, you're fine.
Okay, thanks, cool. Yeah. Good news is I've taken the vaccine tomorrow.
Hey, nice, congrats.
Yeah.
I'm getting my second shot tomorrow too. What a fun coincidence.
Yeah.
Going up to Mount Nittany?
No, Strawberry Fields. Yeah, they have doctors, I guess. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's great news. I'm glad to hear that.
A little shaken after I came here for some reason. Yeah.
It's cold. It is pretty chilly out. How's life going for you?
You know, just, yeah, I hit myself in a whole bunch of times the past couple, the weekend, I guess, and I had to call it crisis, but, you know, it's what it is. I'm diagnosed with grief adjustment disorder about Osagie's death, including anxiety, and also I'm trying to get tested for autism. Today was supposed to be the testing day, second testing day, but we had to cancel it, reschedule it because of icy shit, yeah. Roads, yeah. We had to go all the way down to Phillipsburg.
Ooh, that's a little bit of a trip, yeah.
Yeah, I used to go to school there. They're racist.
Yep.
Yeah, the school is racist.
How's it going?
Mike Smith.
How you doing?
Oh, good.
I was catching a bus and I saw these people here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I saw us for Osagie. Good to see you.
Yeah. What's cool? Are you still working next week?
It's hard to say. The schedule's not like set or whatever, but it's looking like I should probably be back next week.
Yeah, it's just driving me crazy. You know, I barked out Matt, Captain, right?
Oh, you did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a crazy, every day's like a whole new set of problems.
You should have seen what happened on Saturday, you know. I went fucking nuts.
Yeah. Well, I heard you called the number there. Talk to somebody.
One of the numbers.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
good. So eventually, it seems like you made the right decision.
I got a T-shirt. Saw a T-shirt.
Today?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mind being recorded. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's a public event.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just driving me crazy. I don't even mean like doing all this stuff. Like, I don't.
How'd your testing go today?
They had her scheduled due to icy roads. Yeah.
I think the roads were closed that way actually.
Yeah.
You know it's rescheduled for yet?
We're not sure. We're gonna try to do a phone conference.
That's good. Yeah.
That's better. Yeah.
That way it won't get.
Yeah.
Hi. I can't see your face. I can't tell who you are. Oh, it's I'm like, hi. I can't tell who you are.
I was going crazy, but yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was cussing at Matt today, like trying to put Captain in the asylum. Yeah. I was getting so fucking pissed off, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like everybody there, for one reason or another, we keep losing people. Not like losing them, but like nobody's able to come in.
Yeah, it's just understandable right now, but it just.
But I hear you. It gets frustrating.
Yeah.
What's this for marching for? I thought they said he left.
I'm not sure. You have to look it up.
Yeah, I thought I read in the article. I thought they said he left.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Ask Miss Melanie. Yeah.
I can do the same for you.
Hey, Miss Melanie, did the officers left?
Yeah, I thought I was reading. Is he still on the force?
He filed for disability, so he's currently
he's
on
inactive,
disability.
but he's not.
Oh, hey, sorry for recording. You should ask.
Oh, no, we're going Facebook Live, so yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
I gotta get going, but I'll try to stop by too.
We got your account working.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's great news, though.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, babe? I'm
I'm
gonna read
head
something
out,
real
but
quick.
hopefully I'll see you a little bit later this week, for a little bit maybe, but I should be back next week.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Excuse me.
Thanks for coming out too.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for sharing this space tonight. This time, last night, we were all processing yet another damning revelation against the State College Police Department, DA Bernie Cantorna, Borough Manager Tom Fontaine, Captain Chris Fischel, and Police Chief Gardner. After almost 2 years, it did not come from their lips, but from the Osagie family legal team in a statement that will be read shortly. This is the living example that indeed justice delayed is justice denied. For nearly 2 years, they insisted that all policy was followed, insisted that our calls for transparency and accountability were cruel and unfounded, insisted that they had provided us multiple independent investigations and we were just unreasonable to assert otherwise. We called for the names of the officers and they fought us in every way imaginable, trying to vilify our reasonable asks with unreasonable responses. Now we see why they fought so hard. Just a few weeks after the release of the names, we learned that Officer 1 was not only utterly unfit to be at Osage's door, but that the department had been made aware of this information. That Captain Fischel, who conducted the so-called internal investigation and cleared the officers, was the one notified about the officers' continued alcohol abuse and did nothing. I'm sure others will want to speak to this, so I won't spend any more time on it. We are here today, together, a community with eyes open, collectively acknowledging that those who posit themselves are protectors were indeed the murderers. With each new piece of information we receive, there is a communal ache For some, the ache is betrayal, that those you have trusted have violated that trust. For some, the ache is knowing that being right in this moment does nothing to prevent it happening again. For others, that ache may be something completely different. Still, we are here together in this space, knowing that there is much work to be done. Sorry, I got to switch pages. I have been really reflecting on a quote. The dead cannot cry out for justice. It is the duty of the living to do so for them. Those officers thought, they really believed that what they did to Osagie would die in that hallway with his body. Those actions of those in positions of power upheld that belief and protected those officers above the community they promised to serve, that we pay them to serve. Osagie cannot be here beside us to fight this fight. We must decide together in these moments what will be left in the wake of what they have destroyed. We, the people, decide what justice looks like and what we will and will not accept. Because what we accept will continue, but that which we cannot accept must be transformed. If you have not already signed up to be on one of our committees, I call on you to do so now. I can add you to our listserv. Come up and talk to me. Do not wait. Do not assume the work is best left to others. The time is now. The work plentiful. We are the ones we have been searching for. Thank you. Maggie will now read the family's statement.
Hi folks, thank you for being here today. So we wanted to read to you the words from the Osagie family about this new information that's coming from this case. So a few of us are gonna read this for you. Today, Osagie's family amended their federal civil rights lawsuit to include alarming information detailing the State College Police Department's systemic failure to ensure that N. Jordan Pianizek, the officer who shot and killed their son on March 20th, 2019, was fit for duty prior to dispatching him to lead the SCPD's response to their son's critical mental health incident. According to the amended complaint, in the months, weeks, and days leading up to the shooting, SCPD Captain Christian Fischel received eyewitness information that Officer, how do you pronounce it? Pianizek. That Officer Pianizek had been engaging in serial acts of violence, which including the threatening use of a firearm and alcohol abuse. The amended complaint details that within days of Pianizek leaving a treatment facility, an eyewitness notified Captain Fischel that Officer Pianizek was drinking alcohol and behaving erratically and abusively. Yet Officer Pianizek was permitted to remain in uniform, armed and on duty, and he would shoot Osagie to death just days later. Upon learning about Officer Pianizek's condition at the time of the shooting, Osagie's parents, Sevesto and Iyunolu Osagie, stated that we now know that the SCPD's systemic failures dealing with mental health issues went beyond our son, and tragically including Officer Pianizek, who himself appears to have been in crisis and whose behavior was an unheeded cry for help. The Osagie's added, the department failed this officer and consequently they failed our son. The department should never have permitted him to go back in service without providing checks and balances to ensure his fitness to serve and the public safety. Yum yum.
On November 2nd, 2020, the Osagie family filed a federal civil rights lawsuit
against the borough of State College and John Doe police officers, descendants with the borough has since publicly named the Osagie lawsuit, which is held. State College Police Department is response to Osagie's father of a medication-related mental health crisis and had communicated alarming suicidal threats. According to the complaint, instead of ensuring Osagie's safety, the borough and the State College Police Department violated the Constitution. Excessive force prohibition when an officer, now known as Officer PENNSTATE, repeatedly shot him point blank in the back and his side. The suit alleges the borough and the SCPD violated the Americans with Disability Act and the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 by discriminating against Mr. Osagie based upon his known mental health history. The family's legal team, which includes State College lawyers Kathleen Urick and Andrew Shubin, Andrew Silly, Earl Wong, and David Berman from the New York City-based Ermey Silly Burninghoff Ward and NASA law firm, announced Officer PEEP was a ticking time bomb when the State College Police Department assigned him to lead the response team. By the way, of first-hand eyewitness accounts, on March 20, 2019, Officer PEEP was just 2 days out of rehab and still engaged in frightening behavior, armed with a badge, a uniform, and a gun. He was himself a threat to public safety. It cannot have come as a surprise to anyone who knew his history that he was the one who pulled the trigger 4 times and killed Osagie. The amendment complaint filed by the Osagie family told today the real story of why Osagie died on March 20, 2019. The amendment complaint alleges the State College Police Department just never permitted that officer to function as part of the Critical Incident Team, CIT. They respond as individuals like Osagie who are experiencing a mental health crisis. At the fundamental and Agora, the CIT training principle limited participation to rigorously screen suspects of officers within a department who self-select and volunteer. The State College Department gave PEEP every other officer CIT training and automatically deemed him fit to respond to any mental health crisis, notwithstanding his own and obviously red flags. Jeremy.
The Osagie family's amended complaint points to the defendant, PEEP, as the, quote, perfect example, unquote, of the logic underpinning these limitations. Quote, given his history of alcohol abuse and erratic and violent behavior, the defendant, PEEP, would never be an appropriate crisis response team member, unquote, and, quote, was particularly ill-suited for such an intervention when he was abusing alcohol, engaging in erratic and concerning behavior, had just left a rehab facility, and was on his 3rd day back. Despite these dangerous circumstances, the SCPD did nothing to ensure his stability or fitness for duty prior to sending him out on and permitting him to lead the response to a critical mental health crisis incident. Unquote. In what appears to be an emerging public scandal, the SCPD appointed Captain Fischel to chair its Deadly Force Conduct and Procedures Review Board, the body tasked with conducting its internal investigation of the shooting. Captain Fischel also authored the board's report, which did not include any references to the eyewitnesses' fitness for duty information, which he was personally informed. In what appears to be a contradiction of the eyewitnesses' account provided directly to Captain Fischel, the SCPD has maintained the only prior complaint related to Officer PEEP involved a dated excessive force allegation made by a college-age man. According to attorneys Yurchak and Shubin, quote, "It's unconscionable that the SCPD appointed Captain Fisher, a critical witness who possessed urgent and emergent fitness for duty information, to lead its investigation and author its report," unquote. Yurchak and Shubin added, quote, "A true and fair investigation would have required Captain Fisher to provide the eyewitness information to a neutral board and an unbiased chair. The Osagie family and the community at large had a right to know this information, and the SCPD had an obligation to provide it," unquote.
So everything we just heard, and especially since yesterday, has been incredibly difficult on so many members of the community. What happened to Osagie is a scandal. The fact that it was covered up by so many different levels points to systemic issues that are happening here and all over the country. We wanted to give folks the opportunity to come up here and express what this news means. We'll start first off with Dr. Errol Henderson, who has a few words for us. Dr. Henderson?
Thank you all for coming out. Thanks most to the brothers and sisters who've been involved in this from the start. Thanks so much to the 320 Coalition. Thanks so much to the leadership, especially of these folks. Tierra Williams, Nanre Nasiga, Melanie Morrison, Maggie Hernandez. Excuse me if I don't name everybody, but the fact that this has been led by so many members of the 320 Coalition and so many people who come out and supported them, most of us, residents, citizens of State College, or Pennsylvania in general, coming out here for 2 years now, trying to get these folks to do their own job. What is the message for tonight? You've been lied to. You've been lied to repeatedly, mostly from the efforts of these people, and especially starting with the family of Osagie, who were forced to build in the bloodshed of their son, just to get justice that most white folks in this town take for granted. You've been lied to. We've been lied to. From the very beginning, when Osagie is killed, coming to his door, in his own house, preparing the groceries that the police just saw him buy. When he was killed, when they covered the door, as he went to the door, and they shot and killed him, the blood was on their hands. The blood was on their hands. Those 3 murderers, officers 1, 2, and 3, whose names we now know, the blood was on their hands. But when the DA stands up and says the killing of that man in his own home was a tragedy for the Osagie family and for the officer that killed him, when the DA, Cortana, always mispronounce his name. Say his name right for me, y'all. Cantorna. I distort his name like he distort the facts. When Cantorna said it was a tragedy for both, as if killing somebody is the same as having your innocent child murdered. The blood was no longer just on the policeman's hand. Cantorna, the blood is on your hand. The blood, his blood, Osagie's blood is on your hand. When the borough council, when they refused to treat seriously the arguments and demands of the 320 Coalition and the Osagie family, when they refused to launch an actual independent investigation, none of those investigations were independent. None of them. You were lied to. When the borough council rejected that, when some of us went to the borough council and said the police, they didn't even interview Osagie's roommate. Did you know Osagie's roommate was there when he was killed? The police never said to me, when the Borough Council allowed that, Osagie's blood was on their hands. Now Osagie's blood is on their hands. Those who said there was an independent investigation, Osagie's blood is on your hands now. It was on the hands of the police killers. Now it's on the hands of the Borough Council. It's on the hands of the police department. When Penn State University did nothing in response. You know if Penn State would have told them to release those names, they would have released those names the next week. When Penn State did nothing, Penn State University, Osagie's blood is on your hands. Osagie's blood is on the hands of those who continue to lie to him, continue to try to trick you, tell you in the media that the folks out here is a bunch of fanatics, or a bunch of this or a bunch of that, while Borough Council makes jokes when white supremacists issue death threats in their own meeting to the 320 Coalition, who's been nothing but peaceful. When white supremacists issue death threats, they made jokes. When their friends went and made insurrection at the Capitol, only then did the Borough Council make any proclamation. But not about white supremacists right here. The blood is on your hand. His blood, Osagie's blood, is on your hand as you covered up these crimes. You're complicit in them. We demand redress for the Osagie family. More than that, justice. What does justice look like? You first got to realize your hands are bloody. We need an actual independent investigation. We need recognition of what the 320 Coalition has been demanding all along. It's been 2 years. 2 years for this. And they still didn't put out the name. They were compelled to. What did they know? And when did they know it? They're complicit in this. Don't stop here. Meet and demand. Make these demands. Join with the efforts of the 320 Coalition. But don't stop. What they do, they wait you out. It took 2 years to see how much of a lie this was already. That should motivate you. Don't let them wait you out. And last, when you hear us in the media itself, these right-wing sin-clad black broadcasters, old Trump supporters with a microphone and camera, who wouldn't cover the story accurately. Osagie's blood is on your hands. If we understand that, then our actions should be towards justice. I ain't nobody but a citizen of State College, Pennsylvania, okay? But I'm telling you, this is injustice. This is lying. This is murder. It was murder 2 years ago. Osagie's blood is on the hands of his police killers and those who've been complicit in supporting them. The Borough Council, the Chief of Police, those people who came here pretended there was an independent investigation. We call for justice for Osagie.
Yes. Woo. Thank you so much, Dr. Henderson, for those powerful words. Tiara?
3 shots in the back.
Are you justified that?
3 shots in the back.
Are you justified that?
Say his name.
Osagie.
Say his name.
Osagie.
Say his name.
Osagie.
I want to thank everyone who has come out here tonight and who has been with us throughout all of the protests, all of the marches, all of the occupations, the sit-ins, the emails, the calls, the Borough Council meetings. All of that has brought us to this point. I was told that if I spoke out here tonight, that I might not get support from the community and other things that I do. But I'm not going to let anyone stop me from speaking against the 3 murderers who killed Osagie. I think it's really ironic
that the officer who went to go answer this 302 mental health board was clearly dealing with some mental problems himself. The State College Police Department is guilty. This is a cover-up. There is no other word to use. This is a cover-up. This is a cover-up. And what we are not going to do is stand by while the police officers, DA Cantorna, or anyone else tries to talk away Osaze's murder as a suicide. It was not a suicide. It was a murder. I am mad as hell. And what I'm more upset for is the mother and the father of Osagie, who had to file a civil suit just to get these officers' names. And it's obvious why they weren't put out. Because then it would show how complacent this city, the mayor, the borough manager, the DA are in covering up when white police officers shoot and gun down black men. We are not going to stop fighting. We are not going to stop yelling, preaching, protesting, screaming for justice for Osagie. No justice,
no peace.
No justice,
no peace.
Thank you, Sierra. The folks of the 320 Coalition who've been doing this for 2 years are the ones that know the extent of this cover-up. If you have the opportunity to, you can read the entire case of what it says. The people at the State College Borough, the DA's office, members of the State College Police Department knew that the officer that murdered Osagie was not fit for duty. They were completely aware of the fact that he had just come out of rehab. They were aware of everything as they were telling us at every moment that they were not going to concede, that they were not going to give us the names of these people. Their concern and the fact that it took a civil suit to get these names, like Tiara said, but also a civil suit for us to understand the mental state in which this officer was in. It's a disgrace. This city and what they have been doing to cover up, this is a disgrace. Within the court documents, there are individuals that were witnessing the officer one's tendencies, violent tendencies. And when the witnesses brought this up to Fischel, which is now named, an individual who is now named in the case, he specifically said that this information would complicate things. Of course it would complicate things, because it means that Officer 1 was not fit for duty, because all of the lines of people that had to be there in order to ensure that our community is protected did nothing. This is the reason that Osagie was murdered. And the fact that every single layer of government in this area, in this city, is complicit in that. It is a scandal. This is a cover-up. And do not let this information pass you by. That is why we are here today. We are here today because we need you all to know this. We need you all to be there for us. We need you all to continue showing up, to continue pushing for these officers to be held accountable. We need you to actually realize justice for Osagie. That is why we do this. We will not be silent. Repeat after me. We will not be silent.
We will not be silent, right?
We will not be silent.
We will not be silent.
I know that I am one of many people that has had an emotional response to this. And it cannot be as painful as the Osagie family's response. It cannot be as painful as the people that knew Osagie, or that have been involved in this fight since the moment he was murdered. Fight with us. Stand with us. Be there.
there for us when we call you. Because through numbers, we have power. Thank you.
Osagie was not murdered.
Yes, he was. Come back here and say it. Yes, he was.
Fucking asshole.
We don't need people like you.
Yes.
We have each other. You can move along.
Go fuck yourself. Sorry. Sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm going to be brief. I'm one of the folks who was here since the beginning. And I just want to take a moment to remind everyone when this started. And when I say this, I mean the lives. On March 21st, a Thursday, the day after Osagie was shot and murdered by the State College Police about a mile in that direction, Sergeant William Slayton of the State College Police, State Police, Pennsylvania State Police, of the Heritage Department, stood in this spot, and said, do not connect what has happened here with everything happening nationally. The night after Osagie was murdered, the night after, this started from minute one, and they knew from minute one. I have been here since that time. I have been speaking since that time. I have never raised my voice. It's not my voice that's most important. It's the Osagie family. It's the people of color who see themselves and their family members in this act, in this cover-up. It's the people with family members and themselves who have disabilities, who have mental health conditions, who have autism. This cannot stand. This heinous act. Domestic violence is an excellent predictor of gun violence, in case you didn't know. Addiction causes a response in the amygdala, our threat detection system, where it is sedated by the drug of choice. It causes poor decision making when the person is without their substance of choice. The amygdala increases its activity. It makes handling stress very difficult. It makes decisions under stress go wrong. And this is the state the person was in, who the State College Police thought appropriate to send on a mental health crisis call to transport someone for emergency evaluation for inpatient commitment. Someone who is in danger. Someone who the response was intended to be for the sole purpose of safeguarding life. And this is the man they sent. When Dr. Henderson says there is blood on the hands of the State College Police Department, he is literally correct. Every single person who could have and should have stood in the way, of this man being given a gun, a badge, and responding to mental health crisis calls 2 days out of rehab. Every single person who failed to prevent that is complicit. They are just as complicit as the man who pulled the trigger, who should have been receiving help and not put in the position of killing someone. I also want to remind folks, when the State College Police Department did their investigation into whether there was racial bias in this investigation, how many days backwards and forwards did they look at the messaging to tell? Anybody remember? 3 days. 3 days back and forward through Officer Penenzak's messages to see, was there any reference to racial bias? He was out of rehab 2 days prior to shooting Osagie. This investigation has been corrupt and intentionally so from the minute it started. Join with us Join with us. Come with us. There is so much work to be done. We need to be out here on these streets, saying these words, and letting people know. We need to be in the borough council meetings, telling them what we want and what we need. We need to be telling them that on January 15th, when multiple borough council members talk about the community oversight board and say, do we really need that? Do they need to have the power to investigate? Do they really? People don't believe the investigations either. What's the point? That is a direct quote from Teresa Lafer. When they say these things, we need to tell them, this is why. This is why. Thank you for coming here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
OSAZE'S life matters.
OSAZE'S life matters.
OSAZE'S life matters.
OSAZE'S life matters.
We have another community member that's going to share some words as well.
I'm going to apologize. I have like 5 masks on and I can't see without my glasses. So, how many of you guys have counted the police cars driving around? I'd prefer if you didn't take my picture, man.
4 so
Thank
far.
you. At least 4 fucking police cars. Do you feel safe with them driving around as we gather here?
No!
Clearly, it is been proven that the State College Police Department is either incompetent or malicious. Honestly, it's probably fucking both.
Yeah!
Sorry, people are not trying to get frustrated here. Alright, so those of you that know me know I'm a big fan of what's called themes. There's these short little things kind of slammed together, usually bring things down to an understandable level here. So, I'm going to read something called 12 Things to Do Instead of Calling the Cops. Number 1, don't feel obligated to defend property, especially corporate private property. You see that fucking Target over there? They don't give a shit about you. Don't bother defending that. Before confronting someone or contacting the police, ask yourself if anyone is being hurt or endangered by property theft or damage. If the answer is no, let it be. 2, if something of yours is stolen and you need to file a report for insurance or other purposes, consider going to the police department station instead of bringing the cops into your community. Do you really want to see one of those 5 cops that have been circling around here coming into your home in your area? I sure as hell don't. 3, if you observe somebody exhibiting behaviors that somewhat seems odd to you, don't assume that they are publicly intoxicated. Intoxication suits or whatever the hell they are, citations, that's policing morality. Help your neighbor. Don't call the cops on them. Sorry, my hands are cold and I can only print single-sided. 4, if you see someone pulled over with car trouble, stop and ask them to help. Don't necessarily call the police on them because they're stopped with their car trouble. Try to help them, find help for them if you can. It's not hard to jump a car, it's not hard to change a tire. I don't know about you, my dad didn't teach me that. I would love it if my car had a flat tire, someone would come to help me instead of having to call cops or the police or AAA or fuck that shit. 5, keep a contact list of community member resources like suicide hotlines. When the police are called to manage such situations, people with mental illness are 16 times more likely to be killed by cops than those without health challenges. Do I need to read that one again, considering why we're here? 6, check your impulse to call the police on someone you believe is acting suspicious. Is their race, gender, ethnicity, class, housing situation influencing your choice? Such calls can be a death sentence. Again, we're here. 7, encourage teachers, co-workers, and organizers to avoid inviting police into classrooms, workspaces, and public spaces. We've gathered here in the summer during occupations. We've successfully created police-free zones. We can do that in the entirety of the community. 8, if your neighbor is having a party and the noise is bothering you, don't fucking call the cops. Politely ask them to turn the music down or whatever. 9 times out of 10, they will. I have done this, and I'm incredibly anxious in social scenarios. You can do it too. 9, if you see someone peeing in public, look away. We don't have public bathrooms. If you're homeless, sometimes you have to go. It happens. It's not worth calling the cops. 10, hold and attend de-escalation, conflict resolution, first aid, volunteer medics, and self-defense workshops in your neighborhood. Again, we've done this here in our community. We have folks that do de-escalation. We have folks who are trained in various first aid and medical treatment. Hell, I even got my fucking first aid team up with me here. Because unfortunately, I'm sorry for all this swearing if you keep recording this. Again, street art is beautiful. Graffiti is not worth calling the police on. No reason to call someone for going and tagging something in a tasteful way. If it's hate speech, fuck that, clean it up yourself, and get somebody else to come out and make something nice out of it. You can't be the first people to have seen something awful and make something beautiful from it. And the last one here, remember that police can escalate domestic violence situations. Again, when what's his face is, he is a domestic abuser. The officer, Dr. not doctor, fuck that. Officer Pianist Dick, whatever the fuck his name was, he's not going to help you. We need to come together as a community. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. No justice.
No peace.
Thank you so much. The reason, I hope that everyone sees the reasons why we have our friend here give these suggestions. When incidents like the ones he described, when the police are involved, that results in the harm and the death of Black and brown community members.
Excuse me.
Take that advice seriously.
Was I in someone's way?
Because
sorry.
we don't know what will happen when the police are called. And we need to make sure that we are protecting the people in our community that are the most targeted from the hate of the SCPD. Now, to finish up today, we have our last speaker, one of the co-leads of the 320 Coalition, Nanray.
Yeah, it's fine.
Dr. Nanray.
Osagie was a freedom fighter and taught us how to fight. We gon' fight all day and night until we get it right. Which side are you on, my people? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my people? Which side are you on? We're on the freedom side, people. We're on the freedom side. When I quoted the article that was released today, I quoted something that Martin Luther King often quoted. And it's not his, but he quoted it a lot, and I'm going to quote it today. Truth crushed to the earth shall rise again. And Maya Angelou also said, like air, we will rise. And I don't know if we're all here people of faith, but the circumstances that are upon us, we know that something is happening. We know that the truth is coming out. And bit by bit, brick by brick, the entire truth will come out. And nothing is going to stop that truth from rising. Nothing is going to stop that truth from rising. So we continue to fight on the streets, but as some of us have spoken here today, we need to also start to create alternatives. What is the community that would have kept Osagie safe? What is Osage's community? How do we build a community for Osagie? We're coming up to his anniversary, the anniversary of his death, not the anniversary of him coming into this world. But as we move towards it, I want us to all ask the question, how can we make this Osagie? How can we make this Osagie's community? How can we build a community where Osagie would have been cared for, where he would have been safe, where nothing would have happened to him? What do we need to do to make that a reality? So that all Black people, all brown people, all people with different abilities, all people with mental health issues like we all have, are safe. On Friday, we're going to be marching down to Belfont. We're going to ask D.A. Cantona the question that he needs to be asked, which is, why the cover-up? Why the silence? And we know the answers, but we want him to answer. We want him to tell us why these officers continue to walk the streets even though we know what they did. Justice for
Osagie!
Don't give up hope. Keep fighting. We're gonna do so much more, and we're gonna build a community, OSAZE'S community, here in State College. Thank you. The rally is at 12 o'clock, and it's gonna be in Galford. And if you need a ride, let us know. We'll try to work it out despite COVID issues. But yeah, we're going to be here on Friday at 12 o'clock, and we're going to be holding a series of online things as well to accommodate all those who can't come out, because we understand that as well. So thank you all, both here present, and thank you those of us who are watching this online. Let's continue to fight. Let's continue to build OSAZE'S community. Thank you. That's all, folks. Peace. Stay safe.
No justice.
No peace.
No racist.
Police.
No justice.
No peace.
No racist.
Police.
Black lives matter.
Black lives matter.
OSAZE'S lives matter.
Osage's life matter.
Black lives matter.
Black lives matter.
OSAZE'S lives matter.
Osage's life matters.
3 shots in the back.
How do you justify that?
3 shots in the back.
How do you justify that?
3 shots in the back.
How do you justify that?
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
Thank you, everyone. Woo. Tyson, you said you have a music.
Hey. How you doing?
I'm doing.
You're on my Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Hey, if I post something very wrong, I'm very sorry. On my Facebook super opinion, yeah, thanks, bud. Just let me know.
In the coalition in general? Yeah. Yeah, so we have like a bunch of committees. So structural reform, the ones that go to like council meetings, we're pushing for progressive people to run in all the townships and boroughs and
Hey, I may not go to the protest Friday because I might get a phone call from the hospital and they never tested me because of the weather and stuff.
Right. Yeah. No worries. Well, we'll post it on. We'll do Facebook Live also, and there's going to be lots more opportunities. So no worries. Do what you got to do, Dennis. Yeah.
I'm sorry about my language, but I have a funny mouth, Yeah.
Hey, everybody's hurt right now. It's an understandable time.
Yeah.
Trust me, I have a potty mouth too, and I have 3 kids. So you're fine, Dennis.
Yeah.
No worries.
Oh, hey, wait, Sabbath.
Just bring it back to the actions, right?
Yeah. A couple of those that I keep trying to bring back.
Right. Yeah. Just try to bring it back to the actions. So
Yeah.
direct action helps plan events like this. We also have a political ed and community.
You'd have heard it if you listened to Alexis Wainwright's broadcast on WJAC. She's not there anymore. But like most of the news outlets here, they're owned by Sinclair Broadcasting, a right-wing outfit, Trump supporters, right-wing. So that's the news you get. But at least that sister told that story and reported on what the police chief said. In the Daily Collegian, the story about that event, the writer started talking about the clothes we had on. The clothes we had on. Did he just say the clothes we had on? That's what they wrote about. That's what they wrote about. What you know about Osagie. Because if you knew, You will be with the 320 coalition. You knew you'd be outraged that it's done in your name. The police are not a hired military. I know at 17 I was in the U.S. Army. I don't speak for nobody but myself. But if you got to kill civilians, you need a different job. Most police have never killed a person.
Justice for Osagie!
You kill a man on a health care check, a welfare check from their father, and you kill them? Who is the person that killed them? We don't know. They refuse to tell us. They're servants of the people. The police work for us. So if you call someone makes a welfare check for one of you all, they may be getting Officer 1 at their door. We have a right to know that. Who is Officer 1? Who's going to tell us? Well, the DA, of course, Cortana. Look at the presentation when he released the first non-independent investigation. What did he say? His words. You ain't even hearing Henderson yet. It's their stuff. He said it was a tragedy, the killing of Osagie, an innocent black man in his house. He said it was a tragedy for the Osagie family. And in perfect Donald Trump style, he said it was also a tragedy for the policeman who killed them. He said that. It's on the video. Now you gotta look at the whole video. If you just go to the WJAC version, the Sinclair Broadcasting, they cut off that first part. At the first part, he says, it's a tragedy for the Osagie family and for the officer that killed them. I'm not making this up. What you know about Osagie? You know about George Floyd, and you should. You know about Breonna Taylor, and you should. This happened right where you are. What do you know about Osagie? And what do you do about it? These folks, Sister Tierra, Sister Nanre, Melanie Morrison, all these sisters and brothers here, they organized to do honor and justice to Osagie.
Back to the people.
Look here. White supremacism won't just teach you what to think, it'll teach you how to think. Don't accept the frame they give you. If you accept the frame, you're going to accept the conclusions. Don't accept the frames they give you. That's why I wrote that op-ed that students published, Being Black at Penn State. There's been 3% black faculty at Penn State for 30 years. That was published a year and a half ago, not this January. The January before, Google it, Being Black at Penn State. I asked folks, just ask the university, is what Henderson said true? That's all. The students then editing the paper, they investigated it, and then they published it. Look at what they say. They speak stronger than I did. Look at what the editors say. Different editors now. They ain't the same. Oh, Lord, they ain't the same. Look at what those students said. I was the only tenured African-American professor in the history of the political science department. In its history. How long is that? They was teaching political science when Atherton was here. Yes, Atherton, the one the streets named out. That's how long ago, over 100 years. I'm the first one. I tell folks I'm brilliant, I ain't that damn brilliant. The U.S. had a black president before the political science department at Penn State tenured a black full professor. Last year, they tenured 2, so I guess the problem's over. They problem 2 of them. I've been here since 2002. Where'd he come from? Where'd he find some magic Negroes? And those 2 are excellent scholars. I want to be clear. They are excellent scholars. And they were excellent scholars we tried to recruit before. Look here. They got all this money now. They got all these task force now. They will task force your ass to death. They're good at it. They'll wait you out. You know how many damn task force I've been on since I've been here in 2002? About 2010, I said, I ain't doing this no more. Why? The technical term is bullshit. You don't need no task force. You don't need no damn student code of conduct. You a grown-ass woman and man. We never accepted that. Why? Because they'll only use it against you.
Yep.
They'll call me because I just used profanity. You reciting a rap lyric that got the N-word in it, they're going to cite you. They're not going to get them white supremacists. Just like when you see those so-called parties, when it's supposed to be a requirement for masks. You know they white when they say students. Because if they wasn't white, they'd be black students. They'd be brown, red, yellow. There'd be some adjective on it. When it's general like that, that's white. When it's fraternities, sororities, they white. Because if they was black fraternities and sororities, you'd know it. Who's receiving the discipline? We don't have that data disaggregated by race. I've gone to these offices complaining about white students acting a damn fool in my class. Punishment. Rare, if ever. In fact, they rarely even contact me to let me know the disposition of a case I breed. Meanwhile, they call the police on black students. Who do you think they're going to use that code of conduct again? Who? You grown-ass people. You don't need no parents here. You're not going to win the case anyway because you got freedom of speech in the United States. But they'll involve you in task force after task force. I can't count how many I've been on. Listen to it. In 2010, I stopped because it's bullshit. The affirmative action office should be headed by a lawyer from either the NAACP Legal Defense Fund,
only love can conquer. You know we got to find to bring some love in here today. Picket lines and picket signs. Stop here. Don't punish me with brutality. Come talk to me so you can see. Oh, what's going on? What's going on? Tell me what's going on. What's going on? Ooh. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Here you go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother David. Next, we will will have a word about MLK from our very own Maggie Hernandez. Thanks so much for the intro, Tiara, and that was wonderful, Gabe. Hi everyone, my name is Maggie and I'm a member of the 320 Coalition. I'd like to start my time up here by reading a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. This quote comes from his 1967 book called Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? White Americans must recognize that justice for Black people cannot be achieved without radical changes in the structure of our society. The comfortable, entrenched, the privileged cannot continue to tremble at the prospect of change of the status quo. This is a multiracial nation where all groups are dependent on each other. There is no separate white path to power and fulfillment short of social disaster that does not share power with Black aspirations for freedom and human dignity. Dr. Martin Luther King was a revolutionary, a radical, an abolitionist. In this quote, he calls for radical change within society, for the disruption of the status quo that has historically and consistently disenfranchised, discriminated against, and killed Black people in this city, in this country, and in the world. On MLK Day, honoring his legacy means honoring the actions he called for. Honoring his legacy means dismissing Damping's narratives of his words in favor of whitewashed messages that have been co-opted by white people to justify a passive stance on racial injustices. Along these lines, I'd like to read another passage written by MLK in Letter from Birmingham Jail dated 1963. First, I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderates. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Black man's great stumbling block in his stride towards freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderates, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythological concept of time and who constantly advises the Black man to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. These radical positions that MLK spoke and wrote towards the end of his life are the reason that white supremacists killed him. Honoring his legacy means continuing to fight for the very things that cost MLK his life. Honoring his legacy means continuing to fight for change. It means pushing for what is right and what is just. It means battling white supremacy in every manifestation in which it occurs. Honoring MLK's legacy means continuing to fight for Osagie. What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
No!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
No!
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maggie. Next, I will be reading a poem written by June Jordan in memory of Martin Luther King Jr. Honey, people murder mercy, USA. The milkland turned to monsters teach. To kill, to violate, pull down, destroy the weekly freedom growing fruits from being born. America. Tomorrow, yesterday, rip, rape, exacerbate, despoil, disfigure, crazy, running threat, the deadly thrall. Appall, belief dispel, the wildfire burn the breeze. The onward tongue, the outward hand. Deform the normal rainy. Riot, sunshine, shelter, wreck,
of darkness, dim it, blank, explode, deprive, assassinate, and batten up. Like bullets batten up the raving greed, reactive, a springtime terrorizing. Death by men by more than you or I can stop. They sleep, who know a regulated place or pulse or tide or changing sky, according to some universal stage. Direction obvious, like shore-washed shells. We share an afternoon of mourning. In between, no next predictable, except for wild reversal. The black, long London, ritual of fright and insanity, deplorable aberration, more and more. Thank you. Next, we will have words from one of our co-chairs, NAACP.
I thought you were going to say it. Oh. Well, I can talk about it when she was now.
Maybe extra pair of gloves I can borrow.
No. Well, you want to say, well, call for it since I just called your name. It looks weird. So I'll go back up there.
I'm not sure.
We wanted to know if any volunteers would like to read some excerpts from MLK. We have them printed for you. But we wanted to let people know that we like to put black voices in the forefront, but we want white people to speak with us as well and not just stand. It's okay for you all to come and speak, and it's okay for you to participate, and we just want to let that be known. So if we have any volunteers who would like to read an excerpt, I have them with me, okay?
Thanks.
See ya.
See ya.
Your clothes? What's wrong with your clothes? Did you keep them? Oh. Oh, I can't do nothing about that right now. How does it feel? You're supposed to just sit down with
This is Our God is Marching On. We are on the move now. Yes, we are on the move, and no wave of racism can stop us. We are on the move now. The burning of our churches will not deter us. The bombing of our homes will not dissuade us. We are on the move now. The beating and killing of our clergymen and young people will not divert us. We are on the move now. The long-time release of their known murderers will not discourage us. We are on the move now. Like any idea whose time has come, not even the marching of mighty armies can halt us. We are on the move to the land of freedom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have another volunteer?
I will.
They're behind you now, right here. Here, go ahead, start. Oh, do them in order?
Let us therefore continue our triumphant march to the realization of the American dream. Let us march on segregated housing until every ghetto or social and economic repression dissolves, and blacks and whites live side by side in decent, safe, and sanitary housing. Let us march on segregated schools until every vestige of segregated and inferior education becomes a thing of the past, and blacks and whites study side by side in the socially healing context of the classroom. Let us march on poverty until no American parent has to skip a meal so that their children may eat. March on poverty until no starved man walks the streets of our cities and towns in search of jobs that do not exist. Let us march on poverty until wrinkled stomachs in Mississippi are home and the idle industries of the Appalachia are realized and revitalized, and broken lives in sweltering ghettos are mended and remolded. Let us march on ballot boxes, until race baiters disappear from the political arena. Let us march on ballot boxes until the salient misdeeds of bloodthirsty mobs will be transformed into the calculated good deeds of orderly citizens.
Who's going to be part two? Okay, let's do the part one. Yes, sir.
You stop drinking for a second.
Go ahead, sir.
The only normalcy that we will settle for is the normalcy that recognizes the dignity and worth of all God's children. The only normalcy that we will settle for is the normalcy that allows judgment to run down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. The only normalcy that we will settle for is the normalcy of brotherhood, the normalcy of true peace, the normalcy of justice. And so as we go away this afternoon, let us go away more than ever before, committed to this struggle and committed to nonviolence. I must admit to you that there are still some difficult days ahead. I must admit to you that there are still jail cells waiting for us, and dark and difficult moments. But if we will go on with the faith that nonviolence and its power can transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows, we will be able to change all of these conditions. And so I plead with you this afternoon as we go ahead, remain committed to nonviolence. Our aim must never be to defeat or humiliate the white man, but to win his friendship and understanding. We must start to see that the end we seek is a society of peace and a society that can live and can stand. And that will be the day not of the white man, not of the black man. That will be the day of man as man.
Someone wants to say something.
Galford. I knew Osagie. I know him very well. It's kind of hard for me to deal with. I got a phone call like a couple minutes in the morning. Would you remember that that person told me he died? It was hard for me every day. I had to deal with it. I hit myself in the head too many times. This point's useless. I'm sorry. I'm fucked up. It hurts me very much that he died. Not because of skin color, because we're all human. We're all human in different bloods and shape. I've been not a very happy person. I remember like a couple of days ago, I got into like a disagreement with my staff and I hit myself in the head. I bit myself a couple times. It's not going well, bud. I'm actually diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Also, what's it called? I had to take Boost-Barol and also take a lot of bunch of medications as well. I also remember, this is pretty much going downhill for me as well. The reason why I come to the protest today is because I'm not a symbol. I don't want to be one. I want to help him out best I can while he's still living in my mind on this planet Earth. It hurts. It really does hurt. I remember also I hit myself with furnace one time too. It was gone, man. It's pretty much gone. My whole life's pretty much gone. I even post on Facebook saying I don't like my mind right now. Before necessary, dragging me down. My life has been dragging me down, man. I miss him. It's official. I never thought I could say this, but I'm not happy with the police officers. After I heard the story so many times about Officer 1, I even read also read the booklet about what happened, the knife and shit. I didn't believe it was justified, bud. I didn't. I believe it was just kind of like it was probably like manslaughter or wrongful death, definitely, because it did help. It says Osagie wanted to die, the officer shot him, so it's probably considered manslaughter. I was never happy about it. I'm not happy about hearing about it. It was technically, bud, the last straw. When I went to the Spoken Borough Council meeting, it was for real. Like, I felt the energy in my own speaking. Right now, I feel the energy. I'm not doing it for fame. I really miss him. Really do miss him. We used to joke around and stuff like that to be funny. And also, one time I saw it just kind of like, I don't know, I texted him on the phone, the number I still have, at least the number I still have that I'm probably never going to delete. I told him, I talked to him like he was in crisis. I wanted to visit him. He was in crisis. He had to go to the hospital. I told him he was watching the news, and I told him watch a different channel, and so what happened was that he, I guess he felt more of crisis when he like called me, text me like a day after or whatever. I can't remember if it's after or like whatever, but yeah, Dennis, what should I do? What should I do? He texted me. And it happened, like he just kind of like got crisis. I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Thank you for providing us with an intimate portrait of your friend, Osagie. We really appreciate that.
Was gunned down in cold blood, and no one has been held accountable. As we gather here on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we stand by his words and recognize how they continue to ring loud and clear, and how they motivate us to never give up on Osagie and never give up on justice. On March 30th, 1967, King stated to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the problems of racial injustice and economic injustice cannot be solved without a radical redistribution of political and economic power. These words are a reminder to us to keep fighting, to keep protesting, and to keep screaming for justice. Today, our first speaker will be our brother Charles Dumas.
Yeah.
How you doing, brothers and sisters? All
Hey.
right. It's a new day. It's a new time. I'm here. I'm very honored to be here. Invited to be the sort of elder witness of what's going down. But y'all got a great movement going, and reminds me of the days back in the 60s and 70s. I was here for that. What I do want to say is that on Martin Luther King Day,
that Brother Martin Luther King was here in this house. And is bearing witness to what you are doing and moving the revolution forward, moving the struggle forward, moving justice forward, moving freedom forward. I want to say some of the words that he said when he was here. I'm not going to give the whole speech because that's kind of long. But I want to share with you the words that he said on January 21st. And over in Rec Hall, which at that time was the largest auditorium we had. And this is the conclusion of his speech, which lasts about 5 minutes. So first of all, I want to congratulate you on the work that you've done. Those names did not come out, those police officers did not come out because somehow or other the police chief had a change of heart. It came out because of the struggle that you guys have put up. And thank you for that. Thank you. You did it. You did it. Last part of King's speech is Rec Hall. I know that there are some difficult days ahead, but there's still much work to be done. And I know that some of us so often have to stand amid the surging movement of life, stress, and sea, constantly facing chilly winds and adversity. But in spite of this, I still believe that we will solve the problem. Oh, every now and then it becomes difficult to believe. But I will never lose that faith. Living every day amid the threat of death, living amid the agony of the tensions that inevitably come as a result of being on the front line of the struggle. One is tempted to despair for moments. But we have a theme song that I believe, and I will continue to sing it because I believe it. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. Deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome. Now, before the victory is won, some of us will have to get scarred up a bit, but we shall overcome. Before the victory is won, some more will be thrown into crowded and frustrated jail cells, but we shall overcome. Before victory is won, some will be called bad names. Some will be called Reds and communists because they believe in the brotherhood of man. But we shall overcome. Before the victory is won, some more may have to face physical death. But a physical death is the price that some must pay to free their children and their white brothers and sisters from the eternal psychological death and eternal death of the spirit. And nothing can be more than yes, we shall overcome. Because the arc of the moral universe is lost, but it bends toward justice. We shall overcome because Carlyle is right and no lie can live forever. We can overcome because William Cullen Bryant is right. Truth crushed the earth will rise again. We shall overcome because there is something in the very structure of the cosmos that justifies James Russell Lowen in saying, truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future behind the dim unknown, saying that God within the shadow, keeping watch above his own. And with this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair the stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the giant discourse of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood and sisterhood. And with this faith, we will be able to speed up the day with all of God's children all over this nation, black men and white men, black women and white women, Jews and Gentiles, and Protestants and Catholics will be able to hold up and join hands and sing the words of that all Negro spiritual free land. God, we're free land.
Yeah.
Praise God Almighty. We are free at last.
Yeah.
Brother Martin Luther King. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Answer, only love can conquer. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Picket lines and pick your sides. Stop here. Don't punish me with brutality. Come talk to me so you can see. Oh, what's going on? What's going on? Tell me what's going on. What's going on? Thank you very much. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Here you go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother David. Next, we will have a word about MLK from our very own Maggie Hernandez. Thanks so much for the intro, Tiara, and that was wonderful, babe. Hi, everyone. My name is Maggie, and I'm a member of the 320 Coalition. I'd like to start my time up here by reading a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. This quote comes from his 1967 book called Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? White Americans must recognize that justice for Black people cannot be achieved without radical changes in the structure of our society. The comfortable, entrenched, the privileged cannot continue to tremble at the prospect of change of the status quo. This is a multiracial nation where all groups are dependent on each other. There is no separate white path to power and fulfillment, short of social disaster that does not share power with Black aspirations for freedom and human dignity. Dr. Martin Luther King was a revolutionary, a radical, an abolitionist. In this quote, he calls for radical change within society, for the disruption of the status quo that has historically and consistently disenfranchised, discriminated against, and killed Black people in this city, in this country, and in the world. On MLK Day, honoring his legacy means honoring the actions he called for. Honoring his legacy means dismissing dampened narratives of his words in favor of whitewashed messages that have been co-opted by white people to justify a passive stance on racial injustices. Along these lines, I'd like to read another passage written by MLK, a letter from Birmingham jail dated 1963. First, I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderates. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Black man's great stumbling block in his stride towards freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderates, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action,
who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythological concept of time and who constantly advises the black man to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. These radical positions that MLK spoke and wrote towards the end of his life are the reason that white supremacists killed him. Honoring his legacy means continuing to fight for the very things that cost MLK his life. Honoring his legacy means continuing to fight for change. It means pushing for what is right and what is just. It means battling white supremacy in every manifestation in which it occurs. Honoring MLK's legacy means continuing to fight for Osagie. What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
No!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
No!
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maggie. Next, I will be reading a poem written by June Jordan in memory of Martin Luther King Jr. Honey, people murder mercy, USA. The milkland turned to monsters teach. To kill, to violate, pull down, destroy the weekly freedom growing fruits from being born. America. Tomorrow, yesterday, rip, rape, exacerbate, despoil, disfigure, crazy, running threat, the deadly thrall. Appall, belief dispel, the wildfire burn the breeze. The onward tongue, the outward hand. Deform the normal rainy. Riot, sunshine, shelter, wreck of darkness, dim it, blank, explode, deprive, assassinate, and batten up. Like bullets fatten up the raving greed, reactive, a springtime terrorizing. Death by men by more than you or I can stop. They sleep, who know a regulated place or pulse or tide or changing sky, according to some universal stage. Direction obvious, like shore-washed shells. We share an afternoon of mourning. In between, no next predictable, except for wild reversal. The black, long London, ritual of fright and insanity. Deplorable aberration. More and more. Thank you. Next, we will have words from one of our co-chairs, Namre Natsika.
I thought you were going to say it. Oh. Well, I can talk about when she was down.
Maybe extra pair of gloves I can borrow.
No. Well, you want to say, well, call for it since I just called your name. It looks weird. So I'll go back up here.
I'm not sure.
Here, we wanted to know if any volunteers would like to read some excerpts from MLK. We have them printed for you. But we wanted to let people know that we like to put black voices in the forefront, but we want white people to speak with us as well, and not just stand. It's okay for you all to come and speak, and it's okay for you to participate, and we just wanted to let that be known. So if we have any volunteers who would like to read an excerpt, I have them with me, okay?
Thanks.
See ya.
See ya.
I don't think we have anybody who wants to volunteer unless I get somebody who makes somebody do it.
No, I'm gonna go to the end.
clothes? What's wrong with your clothes? Did you pee? Oh. Oh, but I can't do nothing about that right now. How did this feel? You supposed to just be sitting down drinking?
This is, our God is marching on. We are on the move now. Yes, we are on the move, and no wave of racism can stop us. We are on the move now. The burning of our churches will not deter us. The bombing of our homes will not dissuade us. We are on the move now. The beating and killing of our clergymen and young people will not divert us. We are on the move now. The wanton release of their known murderers will not discourage us. We are on the move now. Like any idea whose time has come, not even the marching of mighty armies can halt us. We are on the move to the land of freedom.
Thank you.
Do we have another volunteer?
I will.
They're behind you now, right here. Here, go ahead, start. Oh, do them in order?
Let us therefore continue our triumphant march to the realization of the American dream. Let us march on segregated housing until every ghetto or social and economic repression dissolves, and blacks and whites live side by side in decent, safe, and sanitary housing. Let us march on segregated schools until every vestige of segregated and inferior education becomes a thing of the past, and blacks and whites study side by side in the socially healing context of the classroom. Let us march on poverty until no American parent has to skip a meal so that their children may eat. March on poverty until no starved man walks the streets of our cities and towns in search of jobs that do not exist. Let us march on poverty until wrinkled stomachs in Mississippi are filled and the idle industries of the Appalachia are realized and revitalized, and broken lives in sweltering ghettos are mended and remolded. Let us march on ballot boxes, until race baiters disappear from the political arena. Let us march on ballot boxes until the salient misdeeds of bloodthirsty mobs will be transformed into the calculated good deeds of orderly citizens.
Thank you. Who's going to be part two? Who's going to be part two? Okay, let's do the part four.
Yes, sir.
You stop teaching for a second.
Go ahead, sir. Look,
I think you guys going to hit them.
The only normalcy that we will settle for is the normalcy that recognizes the dignity and worth of all God's children. The only normalcy that we will settle for is the normalcy that allows judgment to run down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. The only normalcy that we will settle for is the normalcy of brotherhood, the normalcy of true peace, the normalcy of justice. And so as we go away this afternoon, let us go away more than ever before, committed to this struggle and committed to nonviolence. I must admit to you that there are still some difficult days ahead. I must admit to you that there are still jail cells waiting for us, and dark and difficult moments. But if we will go on with the faith that nonviolence and its power can transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows, we will be able to change all of these conditions. And so I plead with you this afternoon as we go ahead, remain committed to nonviolence. Our aim must never be to defeat or humiliate the white man, but to win his friendship and understanding. We must come to see that the end we seek is a society of peace and itself, a society that can live and expand. And that will be the day not of the white man, not of the black man. That will be the day of man as man.
say something.
Our streets.
Whose streets?
Our streets.
And disrupting the normal. And everyone has a part in this. So as we first take this intersection right here where we stand, understand that it takes all of us to take this space. So no people on the sidelines, put your bodies on the line. We're going to take over this intersection right now. Whose streets?
Our streets.
Whose streets?
Our streets.
Whose streets?
Our streets. Our street, 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 our street.
Right here in this intersection, you can stay right here when our son talks first, and you can stay this way. Spread out, social distance, remember, get up closer.
Our streets. Our streets. Our streets.
Okay, so the first speaker we're going to be having is
Hello everyone. As you've heard, my name is Audrey Koopman. I'm a senior at Penn State. In 1962, Malcolm X said, "The most disrespected person in America is a black woman." As things have unfolded over the past few days in Breonna Taylor's case, I think we can all hold this notion to be true over 50 years later. We have been saying Breonna's name for over 194 days. Influencers and supposed allies have been using her name as a slogan that validates their so-called wokeness. Brands have profited off her name and image. She has been used for TikToks, for songs, for memes, for documentaries. Whether we wanted to suppress it or not, we all became familiar with the name Breonna Taylor. Demanding that the officers who killed her be arrested became a slogan that was overused without any implementation of action. Like many black women in America, Breonna Taylor was used for the gain of others. Her name wasn't used to commemorate her life, but to put the focus on the system that failed her. Her family was given a substantial settlement for a wrongful death, yet we are still waiting for her life to be valued more than damage to a wall. No matter how far they will go to justify the death of Breonna Taylor, we must find empathy to see her case for what it really is. A death of an innocent black woman, unsuspecting, in her home by those who were sworn to protect us. This is how it goes, right? A black woman is killed, a black man is killed, and no justice is served. We're the ones who are crazy to demand justice, right? Protesters are the ones who are arrested for protesting the unlawful treatment of black people. That's how the system works. Well, I challenge you to not accept that today. I don't accept the lousy settlement that was paid out in an effort to make up for her death. I don't accept that only one officer was charged. I don't accept that accessory to crime holds no stance in this case. I don't accept the decision made by Attorney General Daniel Cameron. I don't accept any of it, and I hope that you won't either. Let's breathe life into Breonna's name again. Let's remember her for the bossy, caring, fun woman that her mother describes her as. When we say her name, let's say it with conviction, as if Breonna Taylor was your sister, your mother, your grandmother, your friend. Again and again, we say enough is enough, but what are we doing to make sure that enough is actually enough? What are we doing to make sure that Black women are protected? Healing and unlearning behavior starts with yourself, starts within. It's important to acknowledge that we all have things that we can improve upon. It is only when we begin to heal ourselves that we can really pour into the people around us. Are we refusing to confront our unhealthy views of Black women? Black women, are we refusing to confront the unhealthy views of ourselves? Do we sit back while colorism reveals itself? Is there internalized racism, homophobia, transphobia, misogyny that is holding us back from really fighting for all of the Black community? Black men, are you willing to stand up for us when no one else will? Allies, are you willing to use your privilege to amplify voices? Hold your friends accountable. Hold your families accountable. Don't let the disrespect of Black women go without consequence around you. We are Black women. We empower, we build, we love, we sustain. We want to be heard. We want to be empathized with. We want our experiences as all different kinds of Black women to be validated. We deserve better. Breonna deserved better. Justice for Breonna. Thank you.
Thank you, Audra. Next, we're going to hear from Olivia. Alright, I'm going to have to take a deep breath real quick because this is new to me. But I just want to thank y'all for coming. Being here means that you care, and I just want to give you guys a round of applause for that. So, close your eyes. Please, everyone, close your eyes. Breathe in. The person standing to your neck, to your right, what's their name? What's their favorite food? Breathe out. To your left, what are their hobbies? What's their most favorite place in the world? Breathe in. What's your name? Who are your loved ones? Breathe out. Now open your eyes. With your eyes closed, you are blind to the appearance of your neighbors, made assumptions about their lives without seeing. Imagine being on the receiving end of an individual with their eyes physically open, but their receptors are closed. Blinded by their assumptions regarding your appearance, making decisions affecting your life based on those assumptions of who you are, what you do, who you love, how you act, and what you value. Choosing a specific, biased, horrific treatment towards you based on those set assumptions, based on the color of your skin. Now, I'm not an expert on Breonna Taylor's killing. I'm not an expert on George Floyd's killing, and I'm not an expert on Ahmaud Arbery's killing. I was not physically present at their murders, but my soul was. Each and every death, each and every video of a murder, each and every story strips away part of my soul. My soul is tired. Is yours? My soul, my identity, have felt threatened since the day I was born. Not for my own wrongdoings, but as a side effect of living in someone else's world, in someone else's nation, where a strong, beautiful, independent Black woman like myself is not supported, but broken down. My strength, my beauty, my identity is oppressed daily by appropriation without recognition, and constant reminders that Black women might hold the world on our backs, but will never receive the payment of love for our efforts. Imagine you were just confronted by an officer. I would have my ID in my lanyard on my wrist, as I do everywhere I go, even when I'm driving. And I would say, my name is Olivia Grace Jack. My family calls me Liva, Livy, Olivia Grace. My friends call me Liv. I'm a student athlete here at Penn State. I'm a swimmer. I'm the co-president of the Athletes for Equal Rights nonprofit organization, the conference co-director of the Caribbean Student Organization here at Penn State, and I'm the president
and the founder of the new Black Student Athletes organization here at Penn State.
Cool.
See, I wouldn't have made it through that statement without interruptions, without shaking, without praying that I would make it home. Would you? Would you be able to fully identify yourself if a police officer pulled you over? My identity is one of the most important parts of me, something I hold close to my heart. I was born in Saginaw, Michigan, the first of 4 children in my family. I lived in Barbados, Brooklyn, and Albany, New York. My mother is white, she's German and Italian, and my father, he's black. He was born and raised in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a nation in the Caribbean, and I'm a mix of the two, Vincentian, German, Italian, and American. My skin is black, and I am black. I've struggled with that whole definition my whole life, whether to say I'm black or mixed. If I say I'm black to some people, they think that I'm disregarding the white genes that are part of my being. If I say I'm mixed, it's assumed that I'm not willing to embrace my black skin. I've decided over the years with countless surveys asking me to choose one racial identity that I'm black. And I love my mom's side of the family and the genes my mom gave me just the same. If I had the choice to pick more than one race, of course I'd say I'm Vincentian, I'm German, and I'm Italian, but there's never that choice. I guess that's one of the first things I noticed about being black in a nation where you're either white or other. There's no identity given on any governmental documents where I can truly define myself as what I am. My grandparents were not slaves. Slavery was abolished in 1865 with the passage of the 13th Amendment, so they say. Throughout school, though, there was a common question as to whether my grandparents or great-grandparents were slaves. My great-grandmother is still alive. Her name's Grandma Pearl, and she's in her mid-80s. Unless she's traveled to the future and created a family, she's not and never was a slave. If they were asked about the originality of my last name, though, Jack, they would respectfully discover that it was given to past family members who were enslaved by the British on the island of St. Vincent, the nation emancipated from Britain, in my father's lifetime in 1979 when my dad was 10 years old. That was the second thing I noticed about living in a nation where black skin is not the expected, not the respected skin tone. I've learned about the same United States history throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, and even now, highlighting all the great and wonderful things accomplished by the white people of the nation, touching on slavery for a day or two, in which my classmates would turn and ask me ridiculous questions. And when we did spend a few days talking about slavery, it was always as though we were tiptoeing around the issue of it all, as though in some way there was a reason why slavery should be validated for its presence. Imagine if we were not taught from the very beginning that Thomas Jefferson was an angel of a man and a president, but instead that he raped the slaves that he owned, ending up creating black children that had lighter skin tones and still worked as house slaves. What if we grew up learning the history of all the members of this nation? If we learned that Native Americans did in fact know this land existed before Christopher Columbus found it? And making those lives that lived in the land work for him, either work for him or die. What if we grew up learning to celebrate the number of cultures we have in this country as equal in nature, instead of assuming the superiority of the white race? We cannot drill into the minds of children the ideas of one racial superiority anymore. It's education that leads to decision making. If someone is taught their whole lives that black people, minorities, are inferior to them with their white skin, and they themselves believe in that, they'll think that it's right to treat them the wrong way as they have the past 500 plus years. When will we get rid of the what ifs? The time for change was yesterday, except yesterday was centuries ago. If little black girls like me grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, are taught that their skin is something that she might be punished for having, how can we grow up loving the very skin that we live in, the very skin that others seem to hate? I did not always love my black skin, my curly afro, and I honestly believed that Well, to be honest, I love straightening my hair. But I realized at one age that that was not my natural hair and I didn't need to do it anymore. But so I believed that I learned when my hair was naturally curly, as it should be, I was still ostracized about the different texture, as though it was a foreign object that needed to be examined and figured out. I was constantly asked, and I'm still asked, how to wash it, how I handle it, how I fit into the cap that I wear every day during swim practice. There were many people who were asking simply out of curiosity, who meant no harm and were simply interested in the hair that was different from their own. Although there were times when the questions were worded, presented, and stated as though my hair was something that couldn't be maintained because it wasn't like their own. I'm tired of being examined. I'm not a foreign specimen, imported from a world other than our own. I have pigmented skin. I have melanin. I have a large curly afro and I have light brown eyes. I'm simply different. I'm a beautiful mix of my mother and father, beautifully mixed, beautifully black, and beautifully me. I have a name. Thank you. I have a name, I have a heartbeat, and I have a story. At 20 years old, I'm still struggling to believe the statements I just made. I'm still bothered by the ignorance created when my black skin is seen and my origin story is ignored. I've learned to handle the questions about my hair, how to decipher if it's coming from a place of pure curiosity or not. And I still struggle with the lack of people who look like me in my sport, in swimming. But I've become numb to it all. I'm not numb anymore. What has kept me going, restored my belief in humanity, is all of y'all. My family, my teammates, and my friends. And so I invite y'all, following COVID rules obviously, to meet your neighbors, the same people I asked you questions about at the beginning. Get to know them. Make a community for yourself here at State College of people that support your ideals and who you are as a person, no matter the color of your skin. Black student athletes, take my phone number in a second, get your phones ready, and join our Penn State Black student athlete community. We're gonna be a big family and watch out for each other because we need each other. We are all we got. And for any other student athletes that are here, watch out for monthly events that we're gonna have for all athletes that will help develop our community and our Penn State community, not just for athletes, but for everyone around us that supports us. So if y'all are ready to take my phone number, I'm gonna send it out right now. It's
Yeah. So as Gabe said, this is a celebration right now. And we plan after this to head up to the municipal building. We have a DJ ready to keep this going. And we're gonna have a block party. We're gonna dance. We're gonna hang out. We're gonna build that community. Thank you. So the 320 Coalition Band came about within the past 2 weeks.
It was 2, right?
It was maybe 2. It might have been less than 2. We had 2 practices together.
So 2 days.
So we created a playlist that's got some political tunes. It's got some dancing tunes. And I just really felt it on my heart to write a song for OSAZE, which I've never performed in front of anybody before. So I'm a little anxious about it, but have to share it here with you all. And I really appreciate you being here. Let's get OSAZE'S name out. We have a Facebook page. Check out our Facebook page for the 320 Coalition. We have an Instagram. We have a Twitter. Let's share OSAZE'S story. Let's share his name. He was a person. He
should still be here today. We need to make his name go national. We need to point out that mental health services are severely underfunded, that biases exist within the system, this so-called justice system, and we need to address the issues that we have instead of continuing to sweep them aside. These are people. Osagie was a community member. He was a son of State College, and we owe it to him to keep fighting until we get justice and until we make sure that this never happens to anybody else's child. Nobody should go through that pain.
Oh, shit.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fire, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out and mountains, we gon' walk it out and mountains, and I rise up, I like the waves, I rise up, I rise unafraid, I rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again, and I rise up, I like the waves, I rise up, in spite of the hate that rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, when the silence is quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Mountains, look at its feet. Mountains, and I rise up, rise like the waves, I rise up, in spite of the hate that rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. That we have each other, that we have each other, yeah. We will rise, we will rise, we rise, oh, 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 we'll rise, and we'll rise up, rise like the waves, we'll rise up. In spite of the end, we'll rise 1,000 times again. We'll rise up, rise like the waves, we'll rise
take some vocals up in here.
Let's get a quick crowd check. Crowd, how y'all feeling out there tonight? Y'all can do a little bit better than that. How y'all feeling out there tonight? That's a bit more like it. Two, 1, 2, 3. Things stand for nothing else. There's no way we ever do. So everything is gonna fall before all of us are leaving. Till we don't have a means. Doesn't matter. So we keep waiting. Waiting on the world to change. We wanna be waiting on the world to change. It's hard to be consistent. When we're standing at a distance, so we keep waiting on the world to change. If we had the power to bring our neighbors home from work, we would never miss the Christmas. No more babies on the door. We need to trust the tip. You know what you did is what you got. 'Cause when we all the information, oh, we can bring it all together. That's why we waiting. Waiting on the world to change. Keep on waiting, waiting on the world to change. It's not to be okay, if it's love that we fight for. So we keep waiting, waiting on the world to change.
This song. Please sing along. And we're gonna, have a little Osaze flare up in there. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We're fighting for our freedom. We shall not be moved. We're fighting for our freedom. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We
shall not be moved. Justice for OSAZE'S, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved. Everybody together! Let them back together. We shall not be moved. Let them back together. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved. Come on, justice for OSAZE'S. Justice for OSAZE'S. We shall not be moved. Justice for OSAZE'S. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved. 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 Just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved. Thank you.
How y'all feeling? Y'all still good out there? What about this side of the street? Y'all good over there?
It's always a good day to fight for justice. It's always a good day to fight for OSAZE'S. Take this community we have here, take this love we have here right now, and spread it out. Spread it out. Join in. Link it up. Show it to everybody. We got to get together. We got to make this happen. We are the change we need to see. Let's make it happen. Thank you. So, in that vein, next song, perfect. I did a perfect transition on accident. We'll pretend I didn't say that. I was born by the river in a little tent, just like the river, and running never since. It's been a long time coming, and I know my change gon' come.
We have 2 more songs for you before I unveil my song I wrote for OSAZE, which we entitled Reclamation. Because this day is a reclamation. We reclaim this day. This is our day. This is our community. And we are going to love each other and take care of each other, and we are going to build a community that keeps one another safe. We're going to keep that feel good moving on.
I know you want to leave me, and I'm used to let you go. If I have to beg you please for your sympathy, I don't mind, 'cause it means that much to me. It's about the you don't need me, don't you? Empty bottles of blue, baby, baby. Please don't need me, don't you? I had a promise, it's half a million. It's so fine.
Yeah, I do.
Don't mind me, by my side. It's about to be so fine. Baby, baby, please don't leave me there. If I could say, oh, you know, say all night and day, from walking away, not your friend alive, even this I can stand, but I wanna leave you, give me a prayer, darling, please don't leave me there. It's a positive, baby, baby. Please don't leave me there, don't you? Give me some, Jack. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we have one more song, and then we're going to head on up to the municipal building and dance and gather and party. We got snacks, water. Yes. So I hope you all can join us up there. Invite your friends. After that, we're going to have a watch party for the OSAZE project. If you've not seen it, you need to see it. It's a special, special piece of work.
And before we do that, let's give us, the community, a round of applause. How about that? This community, we have met our goal of getting $5,000 for the Osazeosagie Memorial Scholarship Endowment. Make some noise for that.
Yeah.
We did that. That's community did that.
That's the power, right? Recognize the power that you have. Recognize the power you can wield in this community. These streets belong to us. We pay for them. This is our town. All right.
I remember when I heard, and I just knew, we all just knew, I had never heard your name, but now your name is a light on this pathway, and we cry. Every person lives a life, becomes our memories, leaves a legacy. OSAZE'S lived in love, the Lord, until the light came in like the thief. So now we call. And
keep it going. Let's go up there and party at the municipal building. Our taxes pay for that building. We're going to party at that building. We're going to build OSAZE'S community. Thank you.
Y'all give both these groups another hand, please. They did an awesome job. Awesome job. Awesome job. 5 o'clock, the DJ will start dancing.
Hello. Good. Huh? Yeah.
And then from 7 to 9, we will be doing the watch party of the Osagie project. Thank you guys, and meet us down at the municipal.